Okay, boss.
I was pressing the wrong button. I was like, why is that not coming off? I was pressing the wrong one.
Wow, what
Yeah, and I'm not even here because there's a reason now. I'm not here on purpose.
Why? I like your skeleton, your alien skeleton, whatever that is.
It's a grey. It's an alien grey on my pumpkin. The reason is that Danielle's been on her holidays.
Yeah.
And she's got a tan.
A tan in what, November, October?
I know, but it's made me look worse.
I went to warm weather.
I know, but if I looked terrible and if I looked like a zombie already, I know it's Halloween. Happy Halloween, by the way.
Yes.
But oh my God, look, are you ready?
Ready? Go.
Look how pale I am in comparison to Danielle Alvis of Michigan.
You're over in the UK.
Put your face there, Danielle. Can you see? Oh my God.
You look almost like a cyclops. Yeah, different. It's like yin and yang.
Yeah. See what she's made me look like.
Sorry?
It's been 2 weeks, everybody. 2 weeks, because last week it was a planned holiday. Danielle went on holiday, vacation. Vacay. Danielle went on vacation, and I thought, fuck it, I'm having a vacation as well. The week before was entirely my fault, though, because, ouch, I've got an umbilical hernia, and it was being a twat. We're back, and it's Halloween.
Hopefully you're feeling better.
Indeed.
Has anything spooky happened to you today, Danielle?
Yeah, I got on here and saw an alien grey pumpkin instead of you.
I thought you were going to say like a pale white Scottish
woman. You know what
happened
happened to me today?
What?
Somebody sent me porn and Signal.
Oh, no. Who would have done that?
It was Danielle Alvis.
Okay, first of all,
I made my own business and I opened up Signal and I was like, what the?
Talk about fake news.
So I happened to go on vacation and it was kind of like called Fantasy Fest, and we didn't know it until we got there, and it was like their Mardi Gras.
Yeah, she booked it on purpose because it was
no. I swear I kept saying, like, we walked into Sodom and Gomorrah. I swear it was not.
Yeah, she sent me pictures of all these naked people, women with like skeleton hands on their nipples, and what?
Not mine.
Yeah,
it was Danielle naked.
No.
Attack an elephant in Florida to see if she would get arrested.
What?
No. No.
If you watched the last, you know what I mean.
Oh, I can't even remember.
Remember the weird laws if you put your
Oh, yeah,
it's illegal to
yeah,
put your
Yeah,
elephant.
yeah.
Yeah, I did. I really totally forgot. 'Cause
Yeah, so slightly different format. We've all picked a topic that we feel is either a little bit spooky, a little bit creepy, or a little bit Halloween themed, and we're all going to tell you a different story today.
Yes, we are.
Can you hear my dog?
Riley's going to provide the sound effects.
Can you hear Riley, Danielle?
No, I can't hear him.
I can.
Wait.
He's like,
Oh, I thought that was just Jamie.
No, that's just me waiting for anticipation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, our stories are still within the realm of histories, mysteries, and crimes.
yes. Talking about dogs, Jamie.
Oh, now I hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it? Did you see my segue there? It was good, wasn't it?
That was good.
Kelly, you're right. You're right, Kelly.
Topic is
Yeah, I wouldn't bring an elephant to a fantasy. Right, yeah.
British Cryptid, The Black Beasts,
The Black Beast.
by James Duffy.
James.
Oh, look at that
That's
cover.
a school essay,
I
doesn't
just written, that's my good. I skill essay.
That's pretty cool. The cover for it.
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Right. England is quite a safe place to live when it comes
It's not.
Well, it is when it comes to dangerous and deadly wildlife. Unlike other places around the world, we don't have fierce tigers, mountain lions, packs of hungry wolves, grizzly bears, or anything like that at all, really. Even our smaller creatures are quite tame in comparison.
Well, that's debatable.
In comparison to others
You've
around
not met
the
my
world.
cats.
Yeah. For instance, we have only 3 snakes. The smooth snake and the grass snake, which are both non-venomous, and the adder, which is venomous. However, their population is so low that there are only around 1,300 reported bites every year, and only 12% of those needed hospital treatment. I have only seen 2 non-captive snakes in my entire life.
I've never seen a snake in the wild.
One
Never.
was a grass snake,
I probably shit myself.
which is quite harmless.
Yeah.
That was alive, and my friend
How
found
did
it
you know
underneath
that
a
it was
rock.
a grass snake and not the poisonous one?
Because my dad always taught me to identify the difference because he
Knew the difference.
See?
Oh, well done, Bob.
Yeah, and I found.
But your dad also taught you that CIA means coppers in disguise or something. CIA,
He didn't teach me that. That's what he was just twatting about, and I didn't take it as a joke. Anyway.
Anywho.
Yeah. I have only seen 2 snakes in my entire life. One was the grass snake, which I've just mentioned, and one was the adder, which is can be deadly. However, this one weren't so deadly because it was dead. That was just
Well, there
I
you go.
laugh at that, but
Was it dead or was it having a nap?
I find it. Well, that's what I mean. I daren't touch it. I
Yeah,
assume
who's gonna poke it?
Yeah, I did actually poke it a little bit with a stick because I did want to touch it, but I was like, because I thought a bird might have dropped that might be just injured, and things like that. So
No.
yeah, I won't go touch it. Just
I've only ever seen a snake in the zoo.
Yeah. But it's the same case with spiders too.
Do we have to?
We only have one spider that is classed as dangerous.
There's one too many. It's one
No,
too many.
that's pretty good though. The UK's doing all
No,
right.
it's not. It's
Between
not
the
good.
snakes
We
and
don't
the
want
spider-
any.
It's called the false widow. There have been no reported deaths associated with the spider, but
Yeah, because I might have a heart attack.
yeah, well, direct deaths. But it can pack a punch. I mean, for instance, our poor little cat Maya can tell you all about it.
I know.
She was just doddering about, and she found a little tiny.
She used to protect her mummy and get all the spiders for me because
She was rubbish at catching things, but she used to go.
she was not. She was brilliant.
She was brilliant. Anyway, she saw this little spider, and she went to investigate and sniff it with her nose, and it bit her. That was only tiny, but that was one of the widows.
Her nose all swelled up. She was very sad.
Yeah.
Poor
And
kid.
now, even the word spider makes her squint sometimes.
She wouldn't go near any of them. Not a single one.
So she knows the word. Like if you say
knows the
spider,
word.
she knows.
If you say spider, she shits herself.
That's a
I've
pretty
trained her
smart
well.
cat.
I've trained her well.
That's a very smart
It's
cat.
like a mummy.
Yeah. I've got the pictures of the snakes here.
Oh, Dab isn't paying attention.
No.
We have snakes and spiders to start us off on Halloween.
Yeah, I thought that would be a good idea.
There's the snakes.
Yeah. So that first one.
These all look the same to me. I wouldn't know what was what.
Exactly, but you can identify them. The first one and the second one are quite similar. The smooth snake, I wouldn't really count it because nobody ever sees one of them. I mean, that's just a rare case that you come across one. They're more in France and things like that, but they sort of make their way here.
Is that the one on the bottom?
The one on the left.
Oh,
the
okay.
one on the right.
The one sticking its tongue out.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one on the right is on the lily pad is a grass snake. That's the harmless one.
Yeah.
They're both fairly harmless at the top.
See, how do you know that you've not seen that one? Because they look the fucking same.
No. In that bottom one is an adder, but it's hard to depict on that. I had to pick a crappy picture because all the rest was made by Getty Images, and I don't like it. So yeah,
that fucking pain for it.
I went with that, which didn't really have a pattern. And my dog is getting really stressed. And there's the next picture is the false widow.
Oh my god! I just turned that off his
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. There we go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then no.
If you look, it looks quite like the black widow, but different
That's
colours. They
creepy.
ain't got the egg timer, but it's got.
I'm
like,
not moving
similar
my arms.
colours.
Take it off the telly.
Right, take off the telly then.
Is it off?
Yeah.
I'm not taking it off. I'll have to move
I
my
can't
arms.
take it off, can I? You're over there.
Oh my god.
I'll remove it. Do you want me to remove it?
See?
All right, we got those
Could
spiders
have warned me you'd done that.
Yeah.
out of the way.
This is what happens when I don't prepare the script.
Uh-huh. Then it goes down quite downhill from there. That just leaves foxes.
No, it can't go downhill for that.
No. It just leaves foxes, deer, jellyfish, and seagulls. Now, before you say it, seagulls, that's a bird, right? Yeah. They can actually be quite deadly. And in fact, they've been getting larger and more aggressive.
They've turned
in
into
recent years.
pterodactyls.
Pterodactyls, that's what these are called.
They're devolving back into.
Yeah. There's been stories of them plucking out eyeballs of family pet dogs or attacking pedestrians on the street. Not long ago, actually, kind of at the start of the summer, I actually went to the garage or the gas station store to go buy something. It's not too far away. I hobbled away along there. And just as I went to go across the road,
Oh no!
this giant seagull came and hit me several times on the head.
Oh my god.
And I was like, whoa, and I was covering my head, and it weren't because I was worried
They're
about it
nasty.
hurting me.
Wait, what? You didn't tell me.
I did tell
They're
you,
nasty. They're basically rats with wings.
but I was actually more scared of actually like having being shit on and have to go in the garage with all shit fucking dribbling down my face. You know, seagulls taste like chicken. Everything tastes like chicken.
Ew. Did you
apparently.
taste a seagull?
Did you taste a seagull?
Kelly.
Really?
I've heard of people like tasting doves. I mean, dove meat and
Why would you eat a dove?
pigeon. Don't they eat pigeon?
Yeah, we have pigeon.
What's wrong with people? There's
Some
no meat
people.
on it. It's a dove. Leave it alone.
Yeah, and when I came back out of the store,
Why
that
are we
actually
down
started attacking me again.
You did not tell me this story. When did this happen?
Let them tell it, Lisa.
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard of it.
And you got one, didn't you, to tell seagull story?
Yeah, my mum. My mum, before she passed away, she lived with us. We like cared for her for a couple of years, and one day, Jamie's dad decided to come and take her into town for a nice little day out.
Yeah.
In her wheelchair. So they went into town, and where we live in Norfolk, there's like market chips. You go and get like chips, which are fries, Danielle.
Yep, French fries.
At the market. They're fucking lovely. So he took her and they got some market chips, and he's pushing her through the market in her wheelchair,
Okay.
and she's eating her chips.
Yeah.
Now, seagulls are fat bastards and they want all
Yeah.
your food.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this seagull just started just swooping towards them. And Jamie's dad, being the gentleman
He's not
that he
here
is,
to defend himself,
I
or
know,
he might be.
Yeah,
he'll
where
be
is
coming
he?
somewhere.
Yeah.
Being the gentleman that he is, he fucking ran away and left my mum in a wheelchair.
I hope you put the brake
Oh,
on
no.
first.
And the seagull just came and hit her smack bang in the face. And when they came home and she was telling me this story, instead of like being like, oh my God, that's terrible. She told me, and I was fucking rolling about the floor laughing. It was fucking because Jamie's dad ran away and just left her in her wheelchair, he just left her there. And
he's not here to defend himself.
He's not here to defend himself, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's what happened.
So yeah, they are quite dangerous.
That's what Jamie's dad did to my mum.
Yeah.
So we're talking about animals that are like gradually more dangerous here?
Kind of, yeah. We also have a dangerous. Well, not really. I'm trying to explain how non-dangerous, but Lisa's turned them in every single one into dangerous animals somehow.
Lisa,
you told me to tell the seagull story.
Let Jamie
do beasties.
You told me to tell the seagull story.
We also have a dangerous visitor, the orca killer whales. Apparently, I didn't.
Wait a minute, because you told me to put the article up, and you've not even said.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know. We were talking about our story.
No, you're talking about seagulls.
Yeah. So on there, if you can see, that's the article about. Yeah, so the seagulls attacked girl.
It killed the dog.
And it killed the dog before.
Is that oh my God, the bastards.
Exactly.
And hurt the baby.
They can be quite lethal.
They killed a poor little dog. See,
apparently they're
seagulls dangerous.
So in the sea we have sometimes visitors, orcas, killer whales, that sort of thing, but nothing what we really going to harm you when you're out and about. Now, prepare yourselves, everybody. We're about to show you the known biggest, deadliest omnivore residing in England today.
The most dangerous animal in the UK.
Look at this. Check out this big, fierce brute.
They are fierce.
They're not as bad as cute.
Badgers, no, but they're mean. They are very
mean, but
they're vicious.
Badger. See, everything else that he said, they were dangerous. That's cute.
I'll put it this way.
Have you not seen like Wind in the Willows and the badger?
In the willow, they're not all like Wind in the Willows.
I think
Toad Hall and
yeah.
The frog drives around.
Have you got badgers?
Yeah. And actually, like Michigan's the Wolverine state, even though I don't think any Wolverines are in here, but it's a kind of a badger.
A badger.
Very close.
Similar. Maybe, but probably with sharper teeth and longer nails.
Probably a bit bigger, isn't he?
Yeah. But badgers, they stay away from badgers. They're mean.
Oh, badger and badger.
Have you seen a baby badger?
Well, they're cute,
of
but
course
all baby animals are cute.
No, they're not. Baby spiders are disgusting.
They're little tiny. No, I'm just kidding.
For hundreds of years, there's been reports and tales of giant black cats and dogs and beasts roaming about Britain, causing fear and devastation in their wake. I'm going to share some black beast accounts with you now, starting off with one that comes from where I live, East Anglia. The black shuck or old shuck. Now, you may think that the word shuck is a strange word. That's SHUCK.
Like fuck.
Like fuck with a list. I can't believe you just said that.
I'm just telling people.
Anyway.
You might have wondered how to spell it.
Oops. But, beep. Beep.
In Old English, that's roughly apparently translated as devil. So it's like old shuck or black devil.
Devil or demon.
They like calling everything, devils and...
Yeah, I've never heard shuck other than like we shuck corn over here, but...
Yeah. So the black shuck or old shuck could be described as a type of cryptid, as its description does vary slightly throughout accounts and sightings. However, the general description is as follows: a massive jet black dog with either large burning red fiery orbs as eyes or just one single giant eye like a cyclops.
Actually in the middle of its head, or has it got one missing?
Well, you'll find out in a minute. It all depends. Well, it might wear.
I didn't know it had an eye patch on it.
An eye patch, yeah. I knew what you were thinking. That's a
pirate.
Pirate black dog. Oh, well, yeah. Anyway, here's a description taken from W.A. Dutt's 1901 book, Highways and Byways in East Anglia. That sounds like the most
fucking highways and byways in East Anglia.
That sounds really
Why
boring.
would you even waste your time right now? That sounds like the worst book in the world.
Yeah.
So these are supposed to exist.
They do exist, Danielle.
Yeah. Has it got a wooden leg too? No, it got hungry and bit its leg off. I don't know.
They've been sighted for centuries. They do exist.
Okay.
Just like Nessie exists.
All right.
Anyway, here's the description. He takes the form of a huge black dog and prowls along dark lanes and lonesome field footpaths, where, although his howling makes the hearer's blood run cold, his footfalls make no sound. You may know him at once should you see him. By his fiery eye, he has but one. That is like the Cyclops in the middle of its head. But such an encounter might bring you the worst of luck. It is even said that to meet him is to be warned that your death will occur by the end of the year. So you will do well to shut your eyes if you hear him howling. Shut them even if you are uncertain whether it is the dog fiend or the voice of the wind you hear. Should you never set eyes on the Norfolk snarly yow, that's another term they use.
So it's like a death omen then.
And sometimes it is, yeah.
But like the Mothman.
It's all situational, yeah.
Right.
You may perhaps doubt his existence, and like other learned folks, tell us that his story is nothing but the old Scandinavian myth of the old black hound of Odin, brought to us by the Vikings who long ago settled down on the Norfolk coast. One of the most famous accounts of the black shark occurred in Blytheborough in East Sussex. In the evening of August the 4th, 1577, many of the locals...
Wait a minute,
you've
changed to your spooky story voice.
Yeah,
just acknowledge how good it is.
Many of the locals of Blytheborough were attending Blytheborough Church. The weather suddenly took a turn for the worse. The sky blackened, and suddenly a clap of thunder rang out, and at the same time, a huge black beast with fiery red eyes and gut-wrenching growl with saliva dripping from its mouth burst through the church door, ran up the central church nave with great swiftness and incredible haste, past the large awestruck parishioners, ferocious. They're not giants, by the way, like in numbers. Yeah, ferociously attacking two of the faithful, breaking their necks, killing them instantly, where they were kneeling and praying. The beast also launched itself towards another man and sank its giant razor-sharp fangs into his arm. The skin on the man's arm instantly shriveled and burnt just like a piece of leather thrown into a fire. This devastating attack also caused the steeple to collapse right through the roof. As the dog left, it left scorch marks on the church doors, which can be seen today and are referred to by the locals as the devil's footprints. Fingerprints, even. Yeah. He's got fingerprints. He's got feet.
Yeah. So
the next picture, So that picture, that one is the Blytheborough Church, obviously on the left, and the other one is a door. Now, obviously, skeptics will say it's just the candles, and it probably is, but apparently that's the devil's fingerprints.
No, it's not the candles. That's the dog. I was scratching to get in. It was like that's what it done.
Yeah. Well, ever small. Right. So why did the black shark target the church? Was it because it was a demonic entity, or the devil's personal hellhound sent to attack a place of worship, or did it target these certain individuals because they were sinners, or was it just a hungry beast that was just seeking its next meal? Around this time, a cruel but common practice to bury black dogs alive on the church grounds, believing that the dog spirit would protect the church from evil.
Grim.
So
they called them the Grim.
Did the spirit of the dog seek vengeance, or perhaps one of the dogs escapes its grave and was, kind of pissed off, really, to be honest?
Yeah, they actually done that.
That's horrible.
I know, it's terrible.
There was also an account of an attack on another church, not far away from Blytheborough in Bungay, around the same time period, actually. And strangely enough, in 2013, a skeleton of a huge dog was unearthed at Leiston Abbey, south of Bungay in Suffolk. It was suggested that it was likely to have been the remains of a Great Dane. Of course, they're going to say that. Or could it have been one of these beasts?
Oh.
What do you reckon, Danielle? Was that a Great Dane?
Or is it a beast?
Or is it a hellhound? Or a werewolf?
Well, without the fur, I'm not sure.
Could be a bloody dinosaur for all I know.
Yeah.
Right, the Black Dog of Newgate Prison, London. From 1188 to 1902, Newgate Prison was one of London's most notorious features. Many of the stories coming from the prison were extremely grim and horrific.
Yeah.
The prison was ill-lit, extremely filthy, dark and damp, and it was overcrowded, so disease would spread rapidly. The wardens would severely beat the inmates regularly, sometimes chaining them to the wall and beating them and then just leaving them to starve to death. There were so many bed bugs, lice, and other beasties, you could hear them crunch beneath your feet.
Oh.
Uh-huh. The prison, indeed. The prison smelled so foul, people from the local area would have to douse a handkerchief in vinegar and hold that up to their nose as they passed the prison.
Oh.
Surprisingly, though, there was a bar in the prison.
That's going to be the etchies. I'm sorry, I feel etchy now.
Surprisingly, Lisa, there was a bar in the prison.
What?
Yes. So
A
you could
bar?
go drink.
A pub?
Yeah.
To order a drink?
Indeed.
So it was filthy. There was beasties everywhere.
Yeah.
They were beating them up and torturing them and chaining them to the walls. But yeah, have a pub.
I bet there was a load of yeast.
What kind of prison has a pub?
Why are they giving them a pub?
Well, apparently,
What the fuck?
those who could afford it could drown their sorrows while they're doing their sentence. So I don't know why they had money on them either. It's
Why have
not
they
like
got money? They're in prison.
Maybe they were
the
given
next picture
credits.
is the actual prison. That's again illustrations because of all the stuff, all the things. So as you can see on the left, that's impression of the prison, and the right is the courtyard. You can kind of see how overcrowded, but I'm sure it weren't that orderly. So
No,
not all that
probably a
going
bloody
on.
mess.
That would probably been a bloody mess.
It probably wasn't all grey and sketchy either.
No, I probably weren't. Oh, mate, then.
It was the black and white days, Danielle.
Oh, Danielle.
Oh, that's right. I
Yeah,
forgot about the
thought
black
there
and
was
white
the black
days.
and white days when I was little. Yeah. Anyway, during the reign of Henry III, between 1216 and 1272, a scholar was accused of sorcery and was sent to the Newgate prison to await trial. Unfortunately for him, his imprisonment coincided with a famine. I thought I was unlucky. That was sweeping England. A famine so bad that the inmates at Newgate were forced to turn to cannibalism.
Oh.
So, the weedy scholar was unable to defend himself.
Well, he's witty.
Yes.
Why are they eating him?
Because he was easy prey.
But they're like, eat somebody that's a bit beefy.
Maybe he was cleaning the ovens. A bit beefy. Excuse me. The weedy scholar was unable to defend himself against these brutish, ravenous, and depraved inmates. So he was soon captured, killed, dismembered, and gobbled up. Shortly afterwards, the prisoners began seeing the spectre of a huge black dog padding the jail corridors. A spectre they became convinced was the sorcerer come to take revenge on those who had eaten him.
Good. That's what you get for eating the widdy man.
Sure enough, the dog began to hunt down and consume those responsible for the man's death. The remaining prisoners who partook in devouring the scholar were extremely fearful that this black beast would eventually come for them too. In fear of this demon dog, they killed several guards and made a successful escape from the prison. They split up and went into hiding. They were free from the terrible Newgate prison, but they were not free from the beast. One by one,
you can't escape the hellhounds.
No.
You can run, but you can't hide.
One by one, the giant black dog sought them out, killed them, and ate them. This black dog has been sighted in and around Newgate over the centuries, especially on evenings before executions.
Obviously, they don't execute people anymore. You mean in like historic?
Yeah, when it was time, yeah, they're still secretly doing. Wouldn't be surprising. But anyway, those are just a couple of historic accounts involving a black dog. However, there is tales and stories and documented accounts of these devil dogs going back centuries all the way up to the present day. So it's all throughout the years. Them ones were two older sort of stories, but obviously there's more modern ones.
Yeah.
Every county in England, it seems, have their very own black dog.
Scotland's got them. I know. Oh, Scotland's actually got one that's green.
Uh-huh. And sometimes they have more than one, which I think Scotland probably have more than one as well.
Danielle's like, green? Yes,
I'm
we've
like,
got a
green.
green dog, Danielle.
Green dog. And I've heard stories about ones with green eyes as well. Anyway, the Bargus of Yorkshire, the Guy Trash of Northern England. As you see, they got strange name. This one's quite funny. The Moddy Doo of Peel Castle in the Isle of Man. Now, I know what you're going to say. You know, England's not, Isle of Man is not part of England. But at the time period when these stories were going, that was being sort of passed back and forth between England and Scotland. So I thought I'd mention it.
I know we used to have wolves in the UK, but did they have them on the Isle of Man? wolves ever? Do we know?
I didn't find that out,
No.
I'm afraid.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah. And then there's the Yeth hounds and Whist hounds of the southwest, and so many more. Obviously, you remember the story of hounds of Baskervilles and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's all sort of relatable and that. Not all these ghostly black dogs are evil. Some are actually considered friendly and protective. For instance, all throughout England, many churches, as mentioned earlier, have their very own church grim tales too. So these are not considered evil or dangerous like others already, but in fact protectors, protected dog spirits. The Grimms would protect the church, and all that would desecrate it included vandals, witches, warlocks, thieves, and the devil himself. Unfortunately, again,
It's a shame they had to bury a dog alive to get
exactly.
the Grim.
Unfortunately, again, as mentioned earlier, you know, they had to bury a living dog.
That's just
not
not
Ancient
right.
people were a bit twisted.
They were a bit
That's not
weird,
right.
weren't they? They're weird. Then you got the Girt dog of Somerset. That is also friendly, and a protective beast. Mothers in Quantock Hills, Bloomfield, Somerset, once let their children play unsupervised as they felt the Girt dog would look after them. The dog also guides and defends travellers. Yeah. So that was just them being lazy, weren't
Yeah,
it?
did they really? Or were just like,
Yeah.
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 Off
That'll
you
be
go.
all right.
Can't be. There's
The
a dog.
imaginary dog will
There's
look
a
after
man.
them.
The invisible dog will look after you. I'm going to the pub at the prison. See you later.
Oh dear, yeah. There have been accounts of ghostly black dogs that will guide and protect people traveling the dark, remote roads in England, and then they would disappear once the traveller would reach his destination nice and safely, and they just sort of disappear just as they appeared. Many of these dogs have been spotted at crossroads. Crossroads are said to be places where the world of man and the realm of spirit meet.
Is that where you get crossroad demons?
And in fact, indeed, yeah. So
I still can't get over them having dogs in charge of their kids.
I know.
Invisible dogs, Daniel.
What about if they got poor eyesight and they get the wrong dog to look after the kids, and they get the evil dog instead of the good dog? Anyway, so what's going on with the number of encounters and tales told over the century? I mean, I believe there could be some validity in some of them as encounters. I mean, there's normally no smoke without fire and all that jazz. Some are probably fictional, maybe a warning, a deterrent, or just a spooky campfire tale, you know. Britain did once have wolves that supposedly arrived around the end of the last ice age, 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. And it was supposedly around 1000 AD that the population started to dwindle by the means of deforestation, hunting, and trapping. It's worth noting that these wolves were not only said to have been large, but they were said to not have suffered dwarfism like other animals in England due to the England's crappy weather and low temperature. Yeah. Everything's a bit smaller, a bit
lynxes as
crappy.
well.
Weather.
Yeah, we did have our animals and lynxes and
Yeah, so that might explain the
other creatures
cats.
before.
But there's some people say there's black cats
Yeah.
as well.
So Lisa's got the picture of Quantock Hills.
Do I?
Yeah,
Do I?
apparently so.
Oh, is that? Yeah.
Yeah. Quantock Hills, as you can see, is quite a remote sort of place. There's a few sort
That
of.
looks pretty, but
That does look pretty. It looks like a little
are
postcard.
you going to tell me there's a demon dog here?
Yeah, and on the right is Crossroads. That's not a crossroads in that area. It's just a crossroads. In fact,
That's supernatural.
that's supernatural.
That's supernatural.
Dan,
Demon Sam Winchester standing that crossroads.
waiting for the crossroad demon. Indeed.
I knew that was supernatural.
Yeah. So, could a population of these wolves still exist in England? And are they what people have been seeing throughout the years? They do actually sound quite like wolves, you know, in the descriptions. And it could be, it could kind of explain why some of the dogs are fierce and aggressive in nature, while the others are more friendly and what they've said quite a few times is protective. And as we know in locations around the world where wolves reside, their nature and behavior do vary, usually down to the type of wolves, their location and experiences with humans. You're probably not recommended to go and pat any one of them on the head, but there is differences in their temperament.
See, I'm not sure. I don't.
What?
When you look at like Bigfoot in America, there's like thousands and thousands of miles of like national parks and that, and it's like possible.
Yeah.
But England's not that. I mean, it's like we're just a little tiny island. But then we've got loads of underground shit as well.
And we've got a lot
there's
of
loads of stuff
countryside.
underground in the UK that could maybe have a population of something, a little population going on.
We did have a lot of countryside.
Yeah.
That's why there's probably fewer. Anyway, are they ghost dogs, hellhounds, or demons? Some encounters do mention the smell of sulphur and foul stench, which is often associated with a supposed presence of a nasty ghost or demons. So if you hear them sort of stories, they always say smell of sulphur or a strange, horrible smell. Could they be dimensional beings? Many of the stories describe these beasts as appearing and disappearing at will, usually surrounded in a cloud of mist, and many of these dogs encounters take place at crossroads, which we just mentioned.
Or on the moors.
And on the moors. So we don't really know what they are, but what I'm going to, or ET present, sulphur.
But they're still reported today.
There is some still reported today, yeah.
Okay.
In fact, a fair few, not as many as the cats, which I'm now going to get onto now. Right, these large black dogs are not the only beasts English folk have had to encounter over the years. There are tales, encounters, and sightings of huge cats too. And like the dogs we've talked about, these sightings and encounters of these large cats differ slightly with regards to time. There are some sort of large cat tales years ago. However, the sightings and encounters you hear more of today.
Hundreds of years or thousands of years?
Like hundreds of years ago. And they sort of ceased. They sort of slowed down. They took a slow sort of pace and there was no more stories. And then more recent years, that picked up again. But that could be the same.
This could be a case of like, because there was like big dogs historically in the UK, and people in the UK, like if you're going back hundreds of years, or even like over 1,000 years, we did have big dogs. So they would maybe see a big black thing that they're not expecting to see and just assume that it's a dog, but it could have been a big cat, because we didn't have panthers in the UK, so they wouldn't maybe know what a panther was. So it's just like they're associating it with what they know. So it might be the same thing.
Well, I mean, just like these, I mean,
did it have red eyes too?
I don't know. I'm not saying it was a cyclops. No,
there has been a few tales of these cats.
My cat's got different coloured eyes when you catch her in the light. It's just
not red fiery
eyes.
eyes.
Red, like they're orange.
If it has red fiery eyes, you better be throwing it out the window.
When you see your cat like in the shadow, their eyes are kind of orangey. It's just it's the way their eyes are made up.
Well, Castiel the other day, he was looking at us, and as my dad can attest, he's quite a big cat. He's got a big head like that, massive eyes. He's almost like a wild cat himself. They're quite cute though. But when he looks in certain light, they're bright blue. But when he looks in certain light, that goes sort of red. So that could be that.
It's a reflection. It's just it's the makeup of their eyes. Cat's eyes could look like for anything from like yellows into oranges into red.
Okay, but getting past the eyes, the ones he's talking about are like they're huge, right?
Well, it's perspective though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They're basically all kind of different shapes, sizes.
It depends how far away it was, what they were like scaling it to, and
there's no sort of what the difference is as well. There's no like direct interactions. Usually, there's been a couple, but mostly it's sightings. And
apart from the one that went in the church and killed people.
Apart from the one that went in the church and killed people, as you said. A couple of the most famous of the cats are as follows. The Beast of Exmoor. This large black... 3 or 2 times his eyes were red. Yeah. A couple of the most famous of the cats as follows. The Beast of Exmoor. This large black cat have been spotted early as the 1970s, but got media attention in 1983 when a farmer reported that he was being stalked by the beast and lost over 100 sheep to the cat.
Ooh.
The farmer even provided photographic evidence of the cat.
That's not the photo.
And some of the injured sheep. Now, I ain't provided the injured sheep. I did find the injured sheep.
Yeah, we don't want to see images of the
that was actually quite bloody and horrible.
Is this his picture?
No, that's a different one.
Right.
Yeah. This evidence was so convincing. Well, it might be actually, come to think of it. Anyway, this evidence was so convincing and compelling that it resulted in the UK government taking the unusual step in deploying a team of Royal Marine snipers to track and take down the beast. They were, however, unsuccessful, and the expedition came to a halt after a cryptozoologist who had joined the hunt got caught and injured in one of his own traps. I had to laugh because we're little animals, but
His own
that's what you get for putting out traps. Yeah. The beast. Then there's the Beast of Dartmoor. Similar encounters have been
And
reported.
what's this one?
That was the Exmoor, the Beast of Exmoor. That one is the Exmoor. That one is the Exmoor. You were correct.
Right.
Yeah.
See, you don't know. You can't tell how
You
far.
see the
You
perspective.
can't tell how far away that is.
Yeah, I hear
what-
what you're saying there.
One of the news articles did sort of like do a distance thing with the post and shit like that, but it's hard to tell. Yeah. You ought to see some of the other ones, and one of them's quite funny. I don't know what it was. Anyway, the Beast of Dartmoor. Similar encounters have been reported by a large black cat in Dartmoor too. Dartmoor, yeah, just show that. It looks like, I think it looks like a wild pig myself. So if you show that,
It does
Oh,
look like
it does.
doesn't it?
yeah,
Is that a pig?
some
It does
people
look like
say
a
it could be
boar
bear.
or something.
Yeah, but I don't think it's as big enough as a bear. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but you don't know what size it is. There's nothing there to scale.
No.
Dartmoor and Exmoor are known as the Two Moors Way, a large rural area of approximately 368 square miles in Devonshire. So perhaps the Beast of Exmoor and the Beast of
That's it.
Dartmoor could very well be the same cat, or Pride.
Okay.
That is the Beast of Bogmore. Now, I was going to include that, but I couldn't find where it come from. I think that's also in Devonshire. I think my dad's saying that was a boar.
See, to me, I'm calling bullshit on this picture.
This one looks very
Yeah.
feline.
That
It
looks like
does
a
look
tabby
very
cat.
feline, but why come the cat's so clear and the grass and that looks all blurry?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, I
Yeah,
hear you.
there's
I'm calling bullshit.
yeah.
That's your graphic experience seeing that.
It
right
looks like
there.
that's just been put there to me.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that actually looked like it could even be like a domestic cat to me, because the grass looked like it's been mowed. The lawn looked like it's been mowed.
But why is the grass all blurry and the
Yeah,
cat's
but it could
like-
be a panther. We'll get to that. in a
Yeah, I hear
minute.
what you're saying, Lisa.
Now, apparently, the Beast of Dartmoor has apparently been solved. Lisa's got the article on that.
Have I?
Yeah. Oh,
Apparent-
show that one. Yeah,
Oh, wait a minute.
that's a footprint.
Do I really?
What one do you want? Article or
Footprint
footprint?
first.
There we go. There's
So
a
as you can
footprint.
see, I mean, there's no mistaking that.
Again,
as a big
there's no
cat
scale.
footprint.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh. But is it too clear? Because we know we've seen
Yeah, but
sort
there's
of
no
like,
scale.
there is no scale. No, you're right.
So how
no
big is
scale,
it? How
but it's-
little is it?
We don't know, but apparently, yeah,
Put a bloody ruler down.
indeed. So if you look at the article now, Lisa, please.
Oh my
You'll
god,
see.
he's so demanding. He's so demanding.
You tell her, Jamie. Come on.
Oh my god, she's snapping her fingers at me.
What's happening? Is that all right? Yeah. So apparently, as we can see here, the mystery of the beast.
of Dartmoor has apparently been solved.
Yeah,
Is that it?
it looked too light. But I don't know if it's the one. You know what they're
I
like.
don't know.
You know. I mean, we ain't used the original some of the original pictures. Anyway, apparently this woman had
No.
like a collection of them, and she
You what? Just have you read
delivered
this?
this. Not
Okay.
no, not correctly. I just wanted to just show that there's evidence of them being caught and discovered, so they do exist. So some people say they're nonsense, but yeah. So
Oh, it's saying that a circus owner released them into the wild in 1978.
yeah,
Well, that doesn't solve it though, does it? Because people have been seeing it for hundreds of years. So what were they seeing before 1978? So yeah,
some of these cats are sort of known as alien
alien
big cats, ABCs, and that's because
They're not aliens. They're just the title
Yeah.
is ABC, alien big cats, because they're alien to the country or the area they're in. They're not actually extraterrestrials. Just thought I'd put that out.
they coincide with UFO activity and the sightings of like the sightings of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, you know, elsewhere. The cats have been sighted, like I said earlier. The cats have been sighted throughout the years, but with unlike the dogs, they've been more continuous. There may be an explanations and reasons for this. Simply put, they're different type of cats and have different explanations to their existence and why some of them ceased. The earlier encounters and sightings could have been wildcats that did exist in England many years ago. For example, the Kellis cat.
A Kellis cat.
Yep, it was a large black cat that was often sighted and reported in Scotland. Just like these other beast encounters, it was considered just a myth, and the sightings were dismissed as hoaxes. That was until 1984, when a specimen was caught and killed in a gamekeeper's snare. The National Museum of Scotland acquired 8 Kellis cat specimens and even have one on display today.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So they actually found it in 1984, so it did exist.
Yeah. Then there's been sightings in later on, more recent years, the 60s and the early 90s. They started to escalate. There is a large department store in London called Harrods.
You probably heard of Harrods.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, Al-Fired and all that business.
Yeah.
It is a store for wealthy shoppers frequented by celebrities and rich cunts.
Yeah.
Got a picture of Harrods if you don't know what
Yeah, it's
Harrods
like
look like.
£100 for a carrier bag or something.
Yeah,
Stupid.
stupid. The store housed many luxury items with huge price tags attached. The store even sold exotic and endangered animals. That was until 1976, when the Endangered Species Act was passed. And the store was forced to stop selling exotic pets and had to stick to selling domestic
you could just
animals.
pop into Harrods and buy a puma.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? But I mean, some of these celebrities get their hands on them
They've
now,
got enough
don't they?
money, you can do whatever you fucking
Yeah,
like about it.
Look at Mike Tyson with his tigers and crap. The theory behind the more recent sightings of these is because some of them could be discarded exotic pets dumped in the wild and somehow survived. For a long time, it was suspected that some of these would obviously, could have escaped from zoos, and that has been proven correct over the years. Lynx, pumas, jaguars, panthers has escaped.
I like that article. There was she actually let them out for the circus on purpose, but that doesn't explain the historic ones.
No. In 2013, one of these zoos responsible admitted they lost a puma, still yet to be recovered. So there's a puma.
You lose a puma?
I don't know.
Is that not like a bloody car keys? Oh, where did I leave my puma?
Oh shit! I've lost my car keys. My wallet.
Yeah, I've lost an elephant.
Anyway, maybe we will eventually find the answers to these mysteries surrounding these creatures. Until then, we're sure we will hear more sightings will continue. And if you find yourself roaming a dark country road in England and hear the eerie owl, pray it's not the sound of the call of doom from the black beasts of Britain. The end. So yeah.
Well, you might find them because they found one in 1984. So
there is also
they just discovered a giant squid. They're finding things all the time.
And this is what I'm saying when they dismiss some of these other cryptids and things like that, they might exist when they say, "Oh, we didn't see bones, we didn't see poop." There is reasons for that, and as we can see, they say that we.
Well, we know badgers exist. How many times have you seen badger bones lying about the place?
Yeah.
Never. There's not.
No.
Yeah, I must.
That was somewhat disturbing, though. I have a problem with the burying of the live dogs. That's
it's very sad. And
ancient people were weird.
Churchgoers and all that.
I know.
I must.
Jamie will be back in a minute because as you've heard, our big black dog's not happy with this.
I actually said
because you're talking about all these other animals, so
I said I'll go first, so we don't, So
that's all right. I think I'm up next with the next Halloween spooky, crazy, creepy story.
Before you start, though, dun, 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 let me just share something.
Okay. As
promised. Head on over to thecuriouscasefiles.com/store. We've got a sale for you because it's come up to Christmas. Get all your Christmas goodies. You can get this little owl stainless steel tumbler, or maybe you want a little dragonfly on a sweatshirt. Maybe you want a plague doctor.
I like the jersey.
Different designs. We've got a moth. We've got little bottles. So much. Go and have a look. And because we love you and it's nearly Christmas, put anything you like from the store into your basket, get the checkout, put in discount code ho 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 and get 10% off your order now. So it's discount code ho ho ho. That's itcho and get 10% off today.
Nice.
Did you look? It's got Bigfoot, everybody. Ho ho ho.
Yes, that, and as she just rolled over there too. You can see that some of these things come in different colors. That hat is very cool, by the way. I
That's
tried
cool.
that hat on. I like it.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
It's got that washed look,
over
stonewashed look.
TheCuriousCasefiles.com/store. And that was my advert. Did you like it? I was
love
actually going to make an advert, but I couldn't be bothered, so I thought I'd just
Check it out.
wing it. I forgot, so I just winged it. Anyway, Danielle's got a story for you.
I do. A true story.
Are you saying Jamie's wasn't true?
I was just going to say the way I said that. I was just thinking the way I said that made it sound like his wasn't true. But, well, when you say I have a story, it's not like a bedtime story. This isn't something you want to tell your kids. But
No, don't tell the kids.
I have never actually, I had never actually heard of this family. But
the Bloody Benders.
They're called the Bloody Benders. They were the Benders, but for obvious reasons that you're going to find out, they were the Bloody Benders, and considered America's first serial killer family. So this story goes back to the early 1870s, and it takes place in Kansas, specifically Labette County, Kansas. And it follows in 1862, there was a Homestead Act that passed, and that allowed people to acquire ownership of the land that had been previously owned by the government or public domain, and they could own it free of charge, provided that the applicant was prepared to reside on the land and then take care of it as well. But as one would expect, the land that was being given away was already occupied.
Where'd you give? Was it Daniel?
No, it was already occupied by Native Americans, the Osage Indians to be exact. And what they did to the Osage Indians is they relocated them to what later would be Oklahoma. I mean, relocated, what a nice word for land theft and mistreatment of Native Americans. But
yep,
that's what they did. And
makes it sound all nice. Like, oh, we're going to relocate you.
Yeah.
We're going to force you from your land and steal it.
And give it away to people.
And give it away to the Bloody Benders.
Yeah, wait till you hear about them. So Kansas had some popular routes that were taken for those traveling west. And as one would imagine, it was a dangerous venture for many reasons. You know, you had the weather, the elements, the snakes, and violence being one of them, as this had been in the years that just followed the Civil War. So there were often attacks on the trails, and that left a little bit of bloodshed behind. Now, Labette County in Kansas was in the southeast corner of the state, and it would become one of the most mysterious and violent areas for travelers, as many would disappear from the trail and never be seen again. Now, primarily between the years of 1871 and 1873, no one knows the exact number of the people that had gone missing in that 2 years, but it's known that at least 11 people were involved, possibly more than 20 over that time span. And normally you would say, well, you know, they're traveling, but these amount of people had to do with one specific family, which makes it more terrifying. Yes. So it seems that one thing that all of those victims had in common, like I said, would be coming in contact with this family known as the Benders. And that family became rightfully and infamously known, as I said, as the Bloody Benders. Now, their arrival in Labette County, Kansas, took place in 1870, and there were 5 families who became homesteaders and were also known as spiritualists. So these 5 families showed up there, and spiritualism is, I'm sure most people know, or maybe you don't, it's a religious that practices the communication with spirits or the dead. And it was their belief that with training, with their training and practice, that anyone could become a medium or one who could channel or communicate with the spirits. So the Bender family was one of those, and they were one of the 5 families that settled in Labette County. And they they consisted with, from left to right there, John Bender Sr., also known as Pa Bender, Elvira, aka Elmira, she was sometimes went by Elmira or known as, and also known as Ma Bender. And then there was John Jr. and Kate. So when choosing amongst the available land to homestead, John Sr. chose plots of land that was situated on like 160 acres on the western slopes of the mountains, which actually today are known as the Bender Mountains.
Yeah.
That was.
Let me just show you that a minute ago. I'll put it back for a minute. Just so. You
Yeah.
can see that little yellow one is their plot, and it shows you who else owned the plots around them.
So together, this
They
family.
got quite a lot of land, though, didn't they? Everybody. They
Well,
gave them
yeah,
shit.
160 acres. That's 160 acres is
They're
quite.
quite generous with the Native Americans' land.
I know. How nice. So together, the family of 4, they built a small cabin, which I don't know how small this is because we'll get into that. It says a small cabin, along with a barn, a corral, a well, all that on the property. And then they also developed a vegetable patch and an orchard on the property, which is weird. Now, the cabin, this is where I just own it. The cabin housed the family of 4. It was one room that was divided with large canvas to create separate living quarters, as well as a small inn and a general store in the front of the home. So when they say a small inn, I'm like, are we talking like a bed?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a small inn and general store.
It doesn't get the dimensions anywhere, because I did look as well. It just says it was one room. But quite a lot of stuff to shove in one room, even if you're separating it with a curtain.
Now, the idea for them doing this with the inn and the general store, or so they said, was to have a welcoming place of refuge and then trade for the travelers along the trail that the property was located on, and that was known as Osage Mission Independence Trail. Knowing what we now know of the Bender family, this was all just a cover to lure people in, but they did have some supplies, some supplies that were needed when you were out and about, and food in the store, and they did allow for the weary travelers to stay overnight as they ventured along the route. So getting back to the Bender family themselves, there is some history of their appearance, their description, and personalities that were given. Now, John Bender Sr., the elder, he was in 1871, he was 60 years old, and he was described as a tall man, a very tall man, over 6 foot tall, with deep dark eyes and bushy eyebrows, which drew him the nickname Old Beetle-Browed John. So he's... Oh, we got a little cartoon. So he spoke very little English and was thought to be from Germany or thereabouts due to his accent and what they could make about. He was said to look wildly kept and even an unpleasant brute, which in that sketch would match that for sure.
He looked like he's got ramen in his hair and beard.
Ramen hair.
ramen noodle hair.
Cartoon, Jamie. It's not a real picture.
Now Vera, sometimes referred to as Elmira or Ma Bender, spoke a little bit better English than John Sr. She was 55 years old in 1871, and she had a reputation of not being very friendly, which I don't know, looking at her,
yeah,
what are you talking about? She looks amazingly friendly.
Even in the real sketches.
Older than 55, I know.
Yeah, even in the real sketches, though, it's just she doesn't have a friendly look about her for sure. Yeah, and so she even, they said, had a sinister look to her eyes that caused the neighbors to refer to her as she-devil. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. So they referred to her as she-devil, and as mentioned before, with regard to the practicing of spiritualism, she claimed to be a medium herself and claimed that she could cast charms, spells, and curses. And rumor had it that John Jr. and Sr. both were afraid of her for obvious reasons. Good. And as one would expect, it looked like she wore the pants in the family. So
she burnt them with her eyes.
Right? So also the next part of the family would have been John Jr., who at the time was age 25 and very lean. Now, he was described as being very tall also, but also handsome. And I don't know. Each their own.
Yeah.
But he was described as being very handsome and friendly. He spoke English very well, but he had, the strong German accent. And he was known to have a strange habit or a tick where he would randomly spout out in laughter just out of nowhere for no apparent reason. Yeah. I mean, you just imagine walking by this guy and just started laughing. So this gave reason for many people to think that maybe he, wasn't all there, or that he was like half-witted is the term that they would use. But later it was surmised that this may have been just an act to throw off his true intelligence and motives, just fake, totally fake. And then finally was their 23-year-old daughter, Kate.
Kate Winslet.
She was known to have fiery red hair that, you know, was like attractive, and she was supposed to be a very nice looking and very friendly and outgoing as well. And again, if you look at the real pictures, I you know, to each their own, but I guess you got to look according to women of that age too. But and when I say age, I don't mean her 23 years old. I mean in the 1870s.
Back in them times.
So she also spoke English very well. Her accent was only slight, and like her mother Elvira, she claimed to have spiritual gifts also, claiming to be
got the real pictures of Kate.
Yeah, claiming to be a healer, psychic, and a medium.
Allegedly, these are believed to be Kate.
Now she even would provide sessions and lectures to those that would pay, you know, earning a profit, to people that would attend her little classes. And she oftentimes during these lectures would promote the notion of free love, but also justification for murder, which to me, like total kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, you got your free love, you got your, you know what, it's like a praying mantis.
You know, like a hippie,
kind of little hippie.
And bite their heads off, you know.
Yeah, not quite the hippie thing.
So although she was known as a beautiful, friendly woman, popular among the locals, she was also regarded, because of her practices, to be satanic, which I wouldn't think would be very off the mark here. So now, while John Sr. and Elvira were more private and unapproachable, kept to themselves, John Jr. and Kate made an effort to be friendlier and part of the community. And they even attended a Sunday school in Harmony Grove. And this allowed them to be more accepted, you know, with the neighbors, and kind of mingle in a little bit, maybe as much as they could. I don't know. So although they presented themselves as a father, mother, brother, sister, there was strong suspicion as to whether or not their relations were true. And many found that John Jr. and Kate were a little bit too friendly with one another to actually be siblings. And but considering the
siblings, because some weird shit went on.
But I mean, really, you never know.
Maybe that's why he's a bit mental and starts laughing, because they're all inbred.
I mean, why not? I mean, we knew it was done, right? But it's speculated that they could have been even married themselves, although that was never documented or proven. Now, in actually, like I said, because there was no documentation, we don't know who any of them really were or where they came from specifically. They had no, you know, and rumors were abundant.
German accents the whole time.
Well, they did have the European, like German accents, is what they thought. So rumors were abundant, including that even John Sr. was said to be from Germany, but some said he also could have like hailed from the Netherlands or Norway, I guess, based on his accent. So I'm unfamiliar with that. But another rumor was that Elvira was really born Elmira Hill, and that she was married several times before John Jr.
The Hills and the Valleys.
Two of the names mentioned that could have or were her husbands were Simon Mark and Stephen Griffith. Now, apparently, as rumors have it, she would marry, killed off her husband, and move on to the next one.
Oh.
So, and it's also said that with all these husbands, it's also said with all these husbands that like she had like a dozen children. Now, none of it's proven, even though it's thought to be true. It's all just conjecture. Nobody can really prove it. So as they started to establish themselves in the county, their inn and their store would attract travelers because they were looking for some place to trade, sleep, eat, whatever along the route. But it would usually be the wealthier ones that would begin to disappear, not the poorer ones.
Oh, what a coincidence.
So the families of these people that were missing would obviously go looking for them, but the trail would run cold and nothing else could be pursued, because you're talking about the 1870s. There was like no DNA. You know, what are you really going to do? The fingerprint.
I haven't got magical abilities, but I could have told you that. I could have foreseen the future.
Yeah. Well, plus it wouldn't have been unusual or out of the realm of possibilities for travelers to meet their demise on this route.
Yeah.
The dangers of
Dangerous
traveling
anyway.
and traveling west, right?
Mhm.
Now, after a couple of years, and by 1873 now, many were known to have disappeared, and the route developed such a bad reputation that many would avoid using that trail altogether.
Mhm.
However, not all the disappeared would never be found again. There were remains of some that would be discovered, and one such was found, a man was found in Drum Creek in May of 1871. He was found with an obvious slit in his throat and a smashed skull, as if with a blunt object, or there you go.
Mhm.
But he wouldn't be the only one, because in February of 1872, 2 more bodies were found with identical wounds. And at first, the owner of Drum Creek, because that's where it was happening, he was the one that was suspected of doing the killings. But there was no real evidence or motive to suspect him, so no charges were pursued. And then in the following winter, there was a man and a daughter who happened to be traveling to Iowa and unfortunately chose this route, and they would never be seen from again.
She was only one, wasn't she?
Oh no.
Little
young,
baby.
very young. The alleged disappeared near the Bender's General Store, and it was the disappearance of George Launcher and his toddler baby daughter that
Mhm.
promoted yeah, she was what did we say, 1 year old, something like that?
One or two. She was still a baby. She was.
Yeah. Well, due to this, and who knew them, it prompted a search by a physician by the name of Dr. William York in March of 1873. So he went out and set out to find them. However, he would disappear and never be heard from again either. So, but it's all who you know, like I said, families and such that know people. So his disappearance then trickled down, and this would set off a major investigation by the doctor's brothers, Colonel Ed York and Alexander York, who was a senator in Kansas at the time.
Mhm.
They got about as thorough as you could get in those days and in those
Funny
conditions.
that they only bothered going to investigate now when the
Someone
brother,
important.
when the brother of a senator was one of the ones that
Yeah.
went missing.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah.
But they would travel, they talked to everyone that they could find that traveled along the trail, and they even went to each homestead to ask questions of the owners. And by this time, at least 10 people had gone missing, and this brought much unwanted attention and a bad reputation to the area, as you can imagine. So the locals, obviously, they wanted to remedy that, so they had what was like a town meeting in March of 1873
Yeah.
at the Harmony Grove Schoolhouse, which was also where they attended Sunday school, to discuss what action that they could take to help improve and change all of this. And believe it or not, John Sr. and Jr. both attended this meeting. Obviously, they stood in the back, never speaking and only observing, but I'm sure they just wanted to know how
If they
much
were onto
everybody
them.
else knew.
Yeah.
But on March 28th of 1873, the missing doctor's brother, Colonel York, made his way to the Bender Inn, and he was accompanied by a man who was only known as Mr. Johnson. I don't know, really, it's probably not relevant, but he accompanied him. And after Colonel York explained why they were there and who they were searching for, the Benders claimed that the missing Dr. York had stayed with them, but had nothing else to offer, and they suggested that, well, maybe he ran into trouble with the local Native Americans once he left our inn. You know.
They go blame.
Oh yeah,
on
blame
the
the Native Americans. Rude.
Yeah. Now the colonel left not knowing the truth at this point, because he's still questioning everybody and trying to find the trail. But he did return to the Benders' home. So that was March 28th when he went there. He returned to the Benders' home on April 3rd of that year, because he had heard about a woman who had apparently ran from the Benders' home, claiming that she was threatened by Elvira Bender, Ma Bender, at knife point. And John Jr. and Kate denied, when questioned, of course, they denied that incident even happened, and that probably would have been the end of it, except Elvira, Ma Bender, she let her temper get the best of her. She didn't like the allegations. She let her temper get the best of her, and she spoke up saying that, well, the woman was claiming that, she cursed my coffee. And she's a witch.
I thought she couldn't speak English.
Well,
Did she fuck up there then?
here's the thing. In a rage, Elvira then ordered the colonel, leave my house. So this is what Lisa just said there. On top of the strange behavior and her little rage, the colonel took note of the fact that Elvira had no trouble speaking English all of a sudden at this time, even though she had previously claimed to speak very little to no English. Yeah, she did. But to help cover the story more, or so she thought, Kate privately, as the colonel was leaving, pulled him aside and said that she would like to offer her assistance as a clairvoyant to help find the brother, Dr. York. Well, Colonel York's no dummy. As he was leaving the premises, he pretty much was convinced the Benders had something to do with it and actually were probably guilty of murder, but he had no proof. So just a few days after this interaction, there was a neighbor of the Benders who happened to notice that the general store all of a sudden was looking a little unoccupied. So upon further investigation, it was abandoned. And even the poor farm animals were left out. They were unkept and unfed.
It's not a good night for these animals, is it?
No. People just don't do animals right. So the town trustee was notified.
They just buggered off and left all their animals.
Yeah. The town trustee was notified about them being gone, and along with the Colonel York, and they began to search the estate because now nobody's there, right? We're going to check it out. They noticed that all the food, the clothing, and the personal possessions had all been taken from the home. It was then that they noticed that there was a terrible stench that was found inside, and they found a trap door in the floor that was nailed shut. So the few of the men, they pried it open, and when they pried it open, they found a hole. It was a 6 feet deep hole that was covered with rotting blood. So dried, So, but there weren't any bodies found in there. It was just like a holding tank. The men, So the men, they said like the men took apart the home, like disassembled it so they could move it and go under, dig underneath it to see if there was anything else to be found, but there was no bodies there. So then they decided to take a look around the other areas of the property. I mean, you're talking 160 acres, but they went over to the vegetable patch, the garden patch, and they noticed that the soil there looked to be like recently disturbed. So they were taking like some metal poles and stuff and it seemed really fishy. So they began to dig, and lo and behold, they found the first body, and that first body to be discovered was ironically Dr. William York.
Wow. What are the chances of that?
Now, not surprisingly, his injuries showed a smashed skull and his throat cut ear to ear, just like the other ones. So they would go on to discover 9 more bodies on the premises, as you showed in that previous pictures there. And they did have the names and were able to identify maybe like 7 of them. So there was a Ben Brown, a W.F. McCrotty, Henry Mackenzie, Johnny Boyle, George Launcher, and his little daughter. Now, the daughter had no signs of fatal injuries, which made them believe that she may have been strangled or even buried alive. If all things, I hope I would hate to be of anybody buried alive, but
I actually watched a thing once about this, and the thing that sticks out in my mind was there was a belief that they'd kept the daughter for a little while after they killed the father.
Boy.
Really?
So then they also found Dr. William York, John Greery, and then they found an unidentified male, an unidentified female, and several unidentified body parts that didn't belong to any of the victims on the property. And to top it off, to top it off, they found 4 more bodies in Drum Creek, where, if you remember, the other body was found. This site was later dubbed Hell's Half Acre for obvious reasons. Now, although their original motive may have been theft from the wealthier travelers, it is estimated that they would have only obtained about what the equivalent of $5,000, which means they killed the others just for evil pleasure, just for the thrill and the sport of it all.
Well, the thing is, at least in like modern times today, people murder people for $30 or 30 quid or something like that. So It's not surprising,
What's
especially
surprising is that you're talking about a family of 4. You're not just talking about one person that did this. You're talking about 4 people that just, I don't know. But after they continued the investigation on the home, they figured out how the Benders lured these visitors in and set them up and then murdered them. They would have the guest sit at a table with their back to the canvas wall as shown, at the wall divider, and the chair was fixed over the trap door in the floor. And it's speculated that Kate would distract the guest, and while John Sr. or Jr. or both would then club the guy from behind the canvas curtain with a hammer. And then Kate or Elvira would then cut the throats from ear to ear. And then one of them would open the trap door and drop the body, where they would then, remove all the valuables and then take the body to another location to bury it elsewhere on the property.
Yeah.
But they also noted that there were a lot of bullet holes in the walls in the premises. And they speculated that this could indicate that some of the people would have survived the first hit, the blunt swing, or that they saw it coming and tried to defend themselves. But ultimately to no avail, because no one really escaped. There were a few people that claimed that they did. Now, there was allegedly some potential victims who came forward with a story. And there was a man by the name of William Pickering who said that he had been at the inn when he was traveling, but he was leery and he refused to sit with his back against that canvas because he noticed stains in it, the horrible stains in there.
He didn't notice little puppet shadows behind him.
Sitting there.
Yeah.
And when he refused to sit there, he claimed that Kate Bender pointed a knife at him and threatened him, which is very.
And that's actually one of the knives. After this happened, a lot of people actually went in and they raided. They left nothing. They wanted souvenirs, and this was in a family for years, and it's still got the bloodstains on it. They went in there and they took all there was nothing even left of the house afterwards.
Yeah, just like the looting and raiding, like you said.
Yeah.
So he quickly ran out and escaped. But I said I wonder why he didn't report it right away. Unless, I don't know, population was scarce. But I feel like I would have been like, there's some quacks living there.
Did they actually have somebody to report it to in the middle?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Now apparently there was also
a police force, or
there had to be law there, some kind of sheriff.
In the middle of a newly settled frontier, it wouldn't be set up yet, would it?
Don't know.
Yeah.
We'd have to find out.
There was also a Catholic priest though, and he also stayed there. He left the house when he noticed that, and he didn't specify which man, but it was either John Sr. or Jr., who was trying to hide a sledgehammer from out of sight.
Not suspicious at all.
Right. So by now, the Benders were gone. They were in hiding, and the York family did offer an award, or reward, I should say, of $1,000 to $2,000 for information leading to their apprehensions or arrest. But they were nowhere to be found. Someone did come upon their very hungry horses, those again animals, the hungry horses, and a lame mare that were located about 12 miles north of the Benders' estate in a nearby city of Dea. And they were able to ascertain from a train conductor that the Benders did board a train at that location, and they were headed to a place called Humboldt, I'm assuming in Kansas maybe. And at that time, authorities think it's likely that the Kate and John Jr. split from Senior and Elvira from there, and that they traveled to Texas to an outlaw colony that existed between Texas and New Mexico. What was interesting about that is, the outlaws like to go there because the lawmen and bounty hunters and such, they didn't want to enter that area because they were usually outnumbered by the outlaws, and many of them probably ever made it out, but never made it out alive. Yeah. There is a report of one detective, though, that did trace Kate and John Jr. to a border, and they discovered that John Jr. had allegedly died from a brain hemorrhage. Now, the elder Benders, Ma and Pa, were said to have traveled northward from there into Missouri. And there were many rumors that made it near impossible to determine what happened from there. Some reported that the entire family was killed in a gunfight and that they were buried in a prairie somewhere. And then another says that they were caught all together and that John Sr., Elvira, and Jr. were shot to death, but Kate was burned alive. And then another story came out that they were all hung and then their bodies were disposed of in a river. But considering that no one ever claimed the reward, these were probably all just, conjecture, untrue.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, in 1884, there was a claim that John Bender Sr. had changed his name to John Flickinger, and that he committed suicide in Lake Michigan.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, a couple of years later in 1889, there were 2 women who were extradited in Michigan on the charge of the Bender killings. They were jailed, but they were ultimately released. There was a lack of evidence. And then along with that, no one was willing to continue to fund their incarceration, I guess, in Kansas. So the charges were dropped, which is probably best because it's believed that they were pretty certain that they weren't even the Bender women.
No.
So fortunately, they weren't blamed for it. Although they were never found and charged with the crimes, there is information that strongly suggests what many believed, that they weren't a biological family after all.
No.
You never know, though.
You don't. John Bender was said to be John Flickinger from Germany or the Netherlands. And then Elvira was alleged to really be Elmira Mark, which coincides with somebody who said that like her first husband went by the last name Mark, and that she was from the Adirondack Mountains in New York State.
Right.
John Jr. was thought to be a man by the name of John Gerbart. However, Kate was said to really have been the daughter of Elmira. So she would have been like the biological one. She would have been the daughter of Elmira Mark, and she was the 5th daughter and was born with the other guy's name, though, Eliza Griffith, Stephen Griffith's daughter.
That's starting to sound a bit like a TV show in the UK called EastEnders, where everyone dies at Christmas, get murdered, and they all slept with each other.
So Kate, like I said, she was allegedly born Eliza Griffith, who later married and then went by Sarah Eliza Davis, her married name. But it was actually
no, so they're just guessing.
Yeah.
But, and I find this, I actually kind of believe this. It was Kate /Eliza/Sarah who was believed to be the mastermind and the strong influencer in the murders. I kind of believe that based on this, what they were saying about her personality and her being like the one who was going out and being the friendly, trying to lure people in.
A bit more intelligent, presentable.
Yeah. Like now, just to sum it all up, as for the homestead, the buildings were said to have been demolished. As you said, there was like nothing left. And of course, rumors and folklore now say that that land is haunted. They also say that upon Kate's death, wherever that may have happened, that her spirit returned and haunts the property, and she's forever forced to walk and roam where the murders were committed and never to find peace, which if she did it, good. There is or was a Bender Museum that was created in 1961 in the town of Cherryvale, which is about 7 miles from the Bender's estate. And the museum housed 3 of the hammers that belonged to the Benders that were donated for display. Now, that museum was ultimately demolished in 1978 when a fire station was constructed in its place. The hammers and all the other items were then moved to Cherryvale Museum, where they are still on display today. So that was the story of the Bloody Benders. True story, evil. I guess no one will never know the specific relations between them, but we do know that they were all serial killer, vicious people.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that they never killed anybody else ever again.
No. That's not their first time.
I'm sure that I don't think that, like you said, that was the first time. We know their MO was to smash and slit.
So is there any other clusters of similar murders that happened after then?
Yeah.
That were unsolved.
Very well could have been.
Yeah, definitely
or
not the first
maybe they did meet their demise shortly after.
11 people, but there was other unidentified body parts, wasn't there? Like remains. So
Yeah, that didn't belong to any of the bodies. Yeah.
if you're counting at least 11 people over less than 2 years, that's 1 every 8 weeks. You're not going to just stop.
No.
You're not.
And actually, like, you know, when they travel, it means even though they nearly got caught, I mean, we've seen them nearly got caught before and things like that. So they're probably definitely, they don't care about that, do they? They could just keep doing it.
Right.
That's all they got left now, isn't they? Once they move away, they're going to have to do that probably more.
The only thing that we can count on.
It seems like they were looking for them all over the place, so that they'd arrested people in Michigan and.
Well, they don't know their bloody names, do they?
I know, but they had like these like sketches and had pictures of at least Kate, because we've got this.
Now, the only thing we can count on is that people in the 1800s or turn of the century didn't live very long. Now, granted, Senior was 60 years old at the time of the murders, but hopefully he didn't last much long past that.
No.
Yeah.
So I can't speak for the others.
Very interesting. I think I have seen a movie about that, but I can't remember all the details. So, yeah, that was good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that probably is an influence for things like The Hills Have Eyes and that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Crazy family in the middle of nowhere that's killing people.
Yeah.
Right. So that was Danielle's little story. And on to the final one, and that's from me. I make you notice a little theme here. Jamie sort of stayed mainly in England. Danielle was in the frontier in America. And I'm going to Scotland because Scottish.
Why not?
And my topic is this. Scottish witch hunts. Now, you've all heard of the Salem witch trials, but you've probably not heard of this one. And you probably should have. So I'm going to tell you all about it. Are we sitting comfortably?
Yes, sitting comfortably.
And let's begin. It was a dark and stormy night. No, it wasn't.
It might have been.
It might have been, but it wasn't. Right. First of all, I'm gonna go for a little tangent to begin with. So, commissioned in 1604 and first published in 1611, is one of the most owned and widely read books in the whole world. A book that is still to this day one of the most popular books in the world, and that book is. You know what it is, Daniel?
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
No, it's the King James Bible.
I was going to say Bible, but King James Bible.
King James Bible. So this was commissioned by King James and translated into English by the Church of England at his bequest, who's basically the editor / pseudo-author of one of the most read books in human history. But did you know that King James's Christian Bible is not the only book that this man is credited with creating?
I did not.
Oh, let me tell you all about it then, Daniel.
Please.
First of all, I've got a picture because I'm very organised. There's your King James Holy Bible.
Okay.
Anywho, see, I've got to do it all myself now because I've done it for them, but I've got to do it for myself as well because they're very selfish.
Oh, you know, I'll mess it up.
Jamie would fuck it up. Right, so first of all, a little bit about King James first. So, backstory, really quickly, potted history. James Charles Stuart, the man who would be the last King of Scotland, nothing to do with the movie The Last King of Scotland, that's completely different. He was born on the 19th of June, 1566, which coincidentally makes his date of birth 19666. Just saying.
Oh,
bear that in mind.
Really?
So, side note, his mother was Mary, Queen of Scots. I'm sure you've all heard of Mary, Queen of Scots.
Yeah.
And in 1567, England's Queen Elizabeth I imprisoned Mary. It's a very long story. This is a short version because that's not what it's about.
I was going to say, give us a short version.
She imprisoned Mary for 19 years and forced her to abdicate the throne in Scotland to her infant son, James, who at that point was just a year old at the time.
Okay.
So that's what happened. At 1 year old, he became King James VI of Scotland because there'd been 5 previous kings called James in Scotland. Very confusing. It gets in a minute, but whatever. I hope you keep up. So Elizabeth then took control of the young king's upbringing, and some might say a brainwashing. Just putting it out there. So much so that after 19 years imprisonment, when Mary had Elizabeth No, Elizabeth had Mary. So got that upside down there. Elizabeth had Mary beheaded for treason and an alleged plot that Mary had to get Elizabeth killed. James just calmly accepted this, and he was like, "Oh, whatever. Mummy's bad. Aunt Lizzie's good. Whatever." Anyhow, he's King James VI of Scotland, and he will later, when Elizabeth passes, Elizabeth is the Queen of England in 1603, he becomes King James I of England, because England had never had a King James.
Mm-hmm.
So he's both King James VI and King James
Which is
I.
confusing, yeah. I heard that
Because
before,
Scotland had 5 previous Jameses and England didn't have any before. Anyway.
Ow.
I know. I know. Right.
Okay.
So before we continue again, it's important to note that 25 years before James was born, King Henry VIII passed an act called the Witchcraft Act of 1541. This is an act which, when combined with a book that James would later publish, would lead to the arrest, torture, and frankly, the murder of thousands of people for well over a century, not only in the United Kingdom, but across Europe and eventually into the Americas. The Act was the first to define witchcraft as a felony, a crime punishable by death, and the forfeiture of all goods, which coincidentally went to the Crown.
Oh, surprise.
It's handy for them, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there were amendments made over the years to the Witchcraft Act, but it wasn't until the Witchcraft Act of 1735 when there was a marked reversal in attitudes and the death penalty was eventually removed in favour of penalties for the pretense of witchcraft, because now it was just you were a con artist, and that was just fines and imprisonment. So a little quick back history. You needed that though.
Okay.
I've got a little picture. Just I should have showed you that a minute ago, but that's an engraving made of Mary with her infant son James, later James VI and the First. Which just we'll call him King James.
Is it even a boy?
I was going to say,
a boy. Just
he
because he's
dressed
got a
him
dress
funny
on
back
doesn't
then.
mean he's not a boy, Jamie.
Your mama dresses you funny.
She does. She does, but bless her. She got beheaded for putting that dress on him. Right. Anyway, the book. You're all still wondering, what's this other book? Well, let me tell you. King James VI of Scotland, whom he was at the time, published a book in 1597. This book was described as a philosophical dissertation of contemporary necromancy and the historical relationships between the various methods of divination used from ancient black magic.
Ooh.
Upon being crowned King James I of England in 1603, he republished the book. Its title was Demonology. The book included a study of demonology and the methods that demons use to bother troubled men. That's his words, not mine.
Oh.
While also endorsing the practice of witch hunting. The book begins, and this is exactly how it begins. The fearful abundance at this time in this country of these detestable slaves of the devil, the witches or enchanters, have moved me, beloved reader, to dispatch and post the following treatise of mine, not in any way, as I protest, to serve for a show of my learning and genius, but
Egotistical.
yeah, egotistical much,
Much.
but only moved of conscience to press thereby, so far as I can, to resolve the doubting hearts of many, both that such assaults of Satan are most certainly practised, and that the instrument thereof merits most severely to be punished. Yeah, so he's a bit of an egotistical twat.
Wow.
Right, so we've got a little cover for demonology, just so you can... There you go. Now, his sources for this book were that of historical confessions from alleged witches, judicial case history, and the Bible itself. Basically, the whole principle of the book was to prove the existence of witchcraft to other Christians through biblical teachings. It was split into 3, he called them books, but it's basically chapters. A book is a chapter. And book 1 is about magic and goes into the following subjects. This is a really potted history because it's a really long book, but this is just so you get an idea. So book 1 is a comparison between necromancy and witchcraft, the use of charms, circles, and conjurations, the division of astrology, because astrology was evil witchcraft, the devil's contracts with man, and comparisons between the miracles of God and the devil, because apparently the devil did miracles as well, according to James.
Confusing.
Book 2.
So he wrote King James wrote this, the Bible guy?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it gets worse, Danielle, it gets worse. Book 2 is about sorcery and witchcraft and covers the following topics. The difference between biblical proof versus imagination or mythology, a description of sorcery and a comparison between sorcery and witchcraft, the path of a sorcerer's apprenticeship, curses and the roles of Satan, the appearance of devils and the times and forms in which they will appear, the division of witches' actions, and methods of transportation and the illusions of Satan. Book 3 is a conclusion of the whole dialogue of the previous 2 books. James states that demons, this is fucked up, just in my opinion, don't come for me. James states that demons are under the direct supervision of God, not Satan, God, and are unable to act without God's permission, which is like, what?
Well, it might
What?
be seen as protect them, I suppose. Protect
Right,
them
and he
from
states that God uses demonic forces as what he calls a rod of correction when men stray from his will.
No, I don't buy
it.
that.
No, I don't like this
Yeah.
guy though.
He also explains how demons can be commissioned by witches or magicians to conduct acts of ill against others. He quotes previous authors who stated that the devil has the ability to appear in any form for varying purposes, and he also claims that ultimately the work of demons, despite their attempts to do otherwise, will always result in the further glorification of God. So he's got it a bit ass backwards, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. Finally, James provides a description of all sorts of entities that, in his words, trouble men. They trouble men. He categorizes them by the methods in which they inflict torment on either a living individual or a corpse. The 4 categories of demonic entities, according to James, were therefore spectra is the first one, and spectra are haunting spirits that trouble houses or specific locations. Then you've got obsession. These are vexing spirits that trouble people, with an emphasis in particular on incubus and succubus, which James claimed copulated with humans using the stolen fertile semen of the dead.
No.
Oh.
That's not something you want to know about. Or...
Yeah. Possession is the next type of spirit, and as the name suggests, these are spirits that enter into a person and trouble them. And finally, completely shot in the, like, wouldn't expect in this fucker, fairies. Fairies are the 4th type, and these are illusionary spirits that prophesy, consort with, and transport their servants. According to James, all of these spirits are fallen angels who are intent on corrupting the weak to destroy the faithful and punish the wicked. So, So in book 2, James argues against prior publications, like this one, which I've got a little picture of. That's called Scott's Discovery of Witchcraft. Now, this publication dismisses the whole concept of witchcraft as basically people suffering from ailments like melancholy, which in more modern terms is mental illness. And it also quite rightfully claimed that many of these confessions of alleged witches were extracted through methods of torture. James was having none of that, though, and he goes on to detail how they're in league with the devil himself and how they undergo a ritual called osculum infame.
Harry Potter, see?
It's not nothing
That's
to do with Harry Potter, Jamie. You don't know what's coming because I've not told you. Osculum
I don't want to mess
infame,
about.
in which witches, mostly women, would perform this osculum infame, which means shameful kiss, by basically kissing the devil's other mouth.
The devil's other mouth?
Which James claimed was the devil's anus.
Yes.
And he put forth the notion that it was this kiss that allowed the devil to seduce women. Coincidentally, only after James wrote this bizarre bullshit down in his book do we find accounts suddenly coming into the confessions that he was present at that people had performed osculum infame and kissed the devil's anus. After being tortured, maybe, but also James disputes that there was torture. There's no torture. But
No
whatever.
torture.
Whatever, James. Whatever.
Well, we know he tortured people when the other previous kings got them to write the Bible.
And just because I knew Danielle would be shocked at osculum infame, I found an illustration.
Oh, yeah, visual. We don't need visual.
Stick as well.
Yeah. So that's the osculum infame, just for you, Danielle Alvis, and that's because of what you sent me earlier. That's my revenge.
No.
Let's get rid of that, shall we?
Yeah. Please and thank you.
Right. He ends by urging much stricter. Much stricter prosecutions of witches and witchcraft in general. In the culmination of the whole concept of the previous books, he urges prosecutions of even the very young, with the only viable punishment being immediate execution. Detection should be achieved through torture, especially pricking the body for the devil's mark. So after saying, oh, no, it's not extracted through torture, he's saying, torture them. Are you a bit tapped, son? Are you tapped? Anyway, and witch swimming, as well as
I can imagine what that is. Yeah.
Witch swimming.
Is that like seeing if they float?
Yeah, they basically dunked the women in water. If they drowned, they were innocent, but dead. And if they floated, they were guilty and murdered.
Same as the sailor.
They were fucked either way.
I knew that from Monty Python, but...
So, accompanying the publication of Demonology was a previously published news pamphlet from England called News from Scotland, declaring the damnable life and death of Dr. Fian, a notable sorcerer. That's the title. Bit of a long title there, but that's what it's called. This is from 1591, and this is actually the first witch panic, which inspired him to write Demonology, which caused the next ones. So this is 1591, and we're in Berwick, which is in like the sort of borders area of Scotland. And the trials that year, King James himself presided over all of the trials as the judge.
How nice.
Mm-hmm. So the deputy, this is how it all started in Berwick. Brace yourself, because it's going to get fucking crazy. So the deputy bailiff to the Kingdom of Scotland was a man at the time called David Seaton. And he had a servant called Gillis Duncan. That's a woman. Gillis is her name, or Gillis. Whom it is stated had miraculously helped countless people over a short period of time who were suffering with illness or ailments, which sounds like a really nice thing for her to go and do, doesn't it? Like, oh, she's helping them. They're suffering for illness and she's helped them. Miracle. David Seaton, however, decided she was a witch. And in order to prove she was a witch, he obtained a confession from her by torturing her with thumbscrews.
Oh.
That made several people in the area apprehensive.
You think?
In fact, there were almost 70 of them, and they weren't sure at all of the validity of this confession and did not think this woman to be an evil witch, possibly because she'd helped them or their family members. Therefore, they themselves were thus declared to also be witches.
Uh-huh.
Because
so everybody is a witch.
Because logic, yeah. These 70 people wouldn't conform to the narrative that was being put forward at the time by the people in charge. So they were given the worst possible label, which at the time was witch, and they were treated as evil outcasts. Does that sound familiar?
Punishable by death.
Yeah, sounds like something that might still be going on a bit, but whatever. One of these was a woman called Agnes Sampson, who went on to confess before King James that she had attempted his assassination on more than one attempt using witchcraft, claiming her and others had sacrificed a cat and sent it into the sea in order to summon a tempest to sink a fleet of ships accompanying the king as he sailed from Norway to Leith in Edinburgh. Apparently, one ship in this entourage did sink during a storm, but the ship that transported the king obviously, the fact he's there as a judge, arrived in Edinburgh unharmed, perfectly safe. Now, little backtrack here. King James had previously sailed an armada to Norway in order to marry Anne of Denmark because they're all inbred as fuck. So they've got to marry. Yeah, you know, they're still doing it. They're all inbred as fuck. So he got off to Norway to marry probably his cousin. I don't know, whatever, fuck it. And at time, one of the ships in his fleet encountered unexpected issues and it sunk.
Oh.
The captain and the crew and those involved didn't want to take responsibility for sinking one of the king's ships. I'm like,
They're going to pass the buck, aren't they?
we're fucked up. So they decided to blame a third party. And who better than witches? Witches did it. Because 16th century, everybody.
They had easy outs back then.
Yeah, so to cut a long story short, a subsequent witch hunt, this is in Denmark, ensued for a satanic plot against the monarchy, and many people were arrested and killed in Europe for allegedly perpetrating this plot against the king. So, when on the journey back, one of his ships succumbed to the chaotic weather and storms in the North Sea, which is notoriously choppy as fuck.
Yeah.
So, not a surprise. King James convinced himself that there must be an international satanic conspiracy against him, and he put 2 and 2 together, and he got anything but fucking 4.
This guy kind of reminds me of someone, but I can't put my finger on him. But,
so, it was widely known by everybody at this point about the plot against him in Norway by so-called witches, and the fact that he believed there were Scottish co-conspirators trying to assassinate him. So are we surprised then that for the first time when he comes back from Norway and he believes all this shit and he's in Berwick as the judge in a fucking massive witch trial, that he miraculously finds the very witch responsible immediately?
Yeah, of course he did.
Or is it more likely that this woman, after prolonged pointed questions and torture, was guided towards making this particular confession and dooming herself to death, all based upon the paranoia brought about by a situation that escalated into the deaths of so many just so a couple of sailors wouldn't have to take responsibility for inadequately preparing their vessel?
I can imagine that.
It's a big fucking coincidence that the first fucking he comes back and he's a judge in this witch trial, and in Scotland's not little. It just so happened that the witch that plotted against them was right there.
Again, that sounds like something familiar today. Recently, yeah.
Too easy.
Anyway,
Too easy.
At that time, Denmark, which had started it all off, was obsessed by another book called the Malus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches, which is a controversial, and have you heard of the Malus Maleficarum, Danielle? Oh, fucking, just you wait, we're going to do this one day. It's a controversial and influential book that was written by a man called Henrik Kramer, who was a German Dominican monk. It's very similar to what demonology done in Scotland, what the Malus Maleficarum done in Europe. This book also sparked a hysteria surrounding witches, which spread throughout mainland Europe. It's basically the similar thing. It's a legal manual for the execution of witches, depicting them as Satan's workers, blah, 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 blah. Now, obviously, when this all happened in Norway, King James was swept up in this hysteria in Norway. He obviously, undoubtedly, become acquainted with this book because it was a huge thing at the time in Europe. And if you're, like, saying witches are plotting against you, they're going to give him that fucking book.
Oh, yeah.
So... the whole Malus Maleficarum, we can do a whole other episode on that because that's fucking a massive rabbit hole. It goes a lot deeper into different things as well. But for today, however, we're going to go back to Berwick and these accused witches because we've only just started there. So back in Berwick and the inspiration for his entire book, Demonology. And I've quickly got another little picture just to show you the bloke and the book. That's the author and the Malus Maleficarum, which we will do an episode on. I've actually got it on Audible to listen to it all so that I can take it all in.
Yeah.
And we'll get to it eventually because it's in a very long queue. Anywho, back to Berwick. Because we're still only on the first of 5. Fuck. Right. Dr. John Thean was another who had been dubious of the original confession and the likelihood the accused woman was indeed a witch. He himself was thus accused of being a warlock.
Yeah.
After a grueling interrogation, Thean openly confessed to having bewitched a man to have a fit of lunacy once a day. To verify this claim, the man that he had apparently bewitched was brought before the king on Christmas Eve of 1590, where the accused warlock Thean allegedly bewitched the man again, causing him to become hysterical and have an hour-long screaming fit, during which time his body is said to have contorted and jumped high enough to reach the ceiling of the chamber in which they stood. After the hour, the becursed man then claimed to have no memory or knowledge of the previous hour, and he said it was as if he was asleep during the entire event. Now, he was in this chamber with the king on his own. Was he asleep? Did he get drugged and then, told him when he woke up,
Poison.
you were fucking screaming and
Yeah,
mental.
but
You were
anything.
cursed. Anyway, Dr. Thean later confessed after fucking ridiculous torture, which we'll get into. He later confessed that he had made a pact with Satan, and he confessed to attending what they called a Sabbat, which is just going into how fucking racist and not racist, anti-Jewish they were at the time, because they're calling it a Sabbat, the thing with Satan. It's like fuck off, just go away. Anyway, which was according to them, the Sabbat, which is very like the Sabbath, was a ritual with the devil where himself and several others had kissed the devil's anus. And this is the first time this is ever mentioned. And then James repeats this, and then all of a sudden everybody's fucking
Everyone's
doing it.
doing it.
So Thean, who's getting
fidget
getting
spinners.
tortured by James, however, claimed that he would renounce Satan and vow to lead his life as a Christian. To reinforce this, he claimed the next day that the previous night, Satan himself had entered his cell and demanded he honour his pact and continue his faithful service to the devil. Thean testified that he then renounced Satan to his face, saying the following, and this is from what he said in the records. Avoided, Satan, avoided, for I have listened too much to thee, and by the same thou hast undone me, in respect whereof I utterly forsake you. According to Thean, the devil then snapped a white wand in half and then vanished, because that sounds like it really fucking happened, doesn't it?
Snapped a wand?
Yeah, I'm just going to snap a little wand in
Had
half.
to be a white one.
Oh, whatever then. You said this little shitty sentence to me. Yeah.
That'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
That'll do it.
Right. Thean, I don't know why I clapped here. Thean, based upon this statement, was then apparently given the chance to live a godly life. However, he was still then locked up in a cell. So how much of a chance that is, I have no fucking idea. After a short time, he managed to steal a key and escape, which obviously realised they're not going to let me go. So he escapes. He was subsequently recaptured and then tortured. Now, this is what they did to him. He'd already been tortured before he escaped, but not to this extent. He had his fingernails forcibly extracted, and then iron pins.
Game of Thrones.
And then iron pins were forced into the places where the nails once sat.
Ooh.
2 separate devices were used on his feet. The first was known as the buskin, which is basically a boot-shaped rawhide garment that was soaked with water and drawn over the foot and lower leg, then bound in place with cord. It was then slowly heated by a fire which constricted the rawhide and squeezed the foot until the bones literally dislocated. After this, the second device, known as the boot, was used. This consisted of 3 upright wooden boards being splintered around the feet. Mm-hmm.
Well, they
It
got
sounds like the movie Misery.
Yeah.
Yeah, being splintered around the feet. These were also tied by a cord, and then wedges were hammered between the boards. This would then crush the previously dislocated bones. Basically, both devices were excruciatingly painful and resulted in the feet being rendered unusable.
You think?
Imagine.
Yeah. He is reported to have endured all of these barbaric methods of torture without expressing any pain, which I have my doubts on. But
yeah.
it would be a mercy if he had not actually felt any of the pain inflicted upon him. After days of unimaginable torture, Dr. Thean was taken to Castle Hill in Edinburgh. It was January the 27th, 1591. At this point, he spoke to the English ambassador in attendance, a man called Robert Bowes, at which time he denied his confession, saying he only told those tales under threat of torture and in the hope it would save his life. It did not.
Nope.
Fian, who couldn't walk by himself at this point, was placed in a cart, strangled, and then set on fire. All because he had shown doubt over the confession
like
of an alleged witch.
Jeez.
You gotta get everyone, yeah.
That's horrible. They
And
didn't
then
call
we-
it medieval for nothing, did they?
They've got a couple of images out of the News from Scotland pamphlet that was included in Demonology Next. And the first one is depicting Dr. Fian Centre showing penitence for his wicked life to his jailer and a chaplain. And then this one is an illustration of him drawing conjuration circles with a bewitched cow. Because that, yeah. We drew it, so it happened. That's what they're saying. We drew a little picture, so it fucking happened.
What a messed up time.
Right, so the Berwick panic, witch panic, all happened between 1590 and 1591. Things calmed down. There wasn't like such a hysteria over the next few years. Witches were still obviously accused, but not in any great number en masse. That was until King James published Demonology in 1597. After the publication of the book, Scotland was gripped by what could only be described as witchcraft hysteria.
Mm-hmm.
In a 7-month period between March and October, around 400 people were tried for witchcraft, and just over 200 of those were executed. The number of the accused was double that of those who were accused in the Salem witch trials of 1692.
Wow.
But the Scottish witch trials are not as widely known, nor is the connection of King James. It's a story that is very rarely told. So I'm going to fucking tell you because I'm Scottish and this needs to be known.
Not
Anyway.
that it means much, but I've never heard it. You always hear about the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. So many lives horrifically taken after the extraction of forced confessions, resulting in horrific prolonged torture and ultimately the execution of these poor souls. Now, unlike their US counterparts where the victims were hung, many in Europe and ultimately Scotland were burnt to protect them against what is called post-mortem sorcery. That's what they called it. But even more horrifically, many were burnt alive at the stake and faced horrific, excruciating, slow deaths.
See, I thought that was a common practice. I thought they burned a lot of them at the stake. Because you always hear about the witches.
They called it mercy if they strangled them first before they set them on fire. That was them being merciful after torturing them for sometimes months. And this is an illustration from a woodcut, which is just sort of tells you everything you need to know, really. It's self-explanatory.
Yeah. Wow.
How cruel.
So, the first Great Scottish Witch Hunt is the one that we just spoke about in Berwick in 1591, which started this all off because King James presided over it and everything else that had happened to him in Denmark. So when Demonology was first published in 1597, that sparked what became as the Great Scottish Witch Hunt of 1597. This is also referred to as the second of 5, with the Berwick Witch Hunt and trials presided over King James being the first. The earliest cases recorded seem to have taken place just north of Aberdeen in March of 1597, where local authorities asked permission to execute witches. This was followed by a large witch trial in Aberdeen against Janet Wishart and her accomplices. Wishart was alleged to have used cantrip, which is a spell, to cause one victim to alternately shiver and sweat.
So if she sweat, it'll have a fever.
She made somebody shiver and sweat. She bewitched other victims so that they either died or nearly died, and she raised storms via throwing out live coals and used nightmare cats to inflict horrible dreams and dismembered a corpse hanging at the gallows. She was executed by burning along with another witch.
It was way too easy. Way too easy to blame everything.
The best known case from the second witch hunt concerns a woman called Margaret Aitken from Kirkcaldy in Fife, whose actions ultimately led to the end of this particular series of witch trials, but not without a great cost beforehand. Known as the Great Witch of Bolweary, Bolweary being a parish within the town of Kirkcaldy, Margaret was accused of witchcraft and arrested in April of 1597. Under a threat of extreme torture and in an effort to save her own life, Margaret claims she possessed an ability that allowed her to recognise other witches by looking for a special mark in their eye. She also claimed to know the existence of some 2,300 witches in Atholl. And under a commission approved by King James, she was taken from town to town to identify witches. She was taken to Glasgow and all over Fife. It's not known exactly how many innocent men and women she accused of being a witch, but every person she identified was arrested and subjected to torture, under which most confessed. It wasn't until August the 1st that a sceptical prosecutor decided to test Margaret. So he took some of those that she identified as witches and dressed them differently and brought them back the next day, where she declared them as innocent.
She's been rumbled.
She then confessed to having lied. Aitken was burnt at the stake in Fife later that August. Bizarrely, though, it wasn't until October that the spate of trials and executions ceased. So many were still executed on her word, even after she was declared a fraud. The public outcry over this meant that Scotland would not see another witch panic for 3 decades. When the dust had settled and a new generation were introduced to the book Demonology, and the hysteria would rear its ugly head yet again.
Mm-hmm. It's funny about the mention about the mark of the eye, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And there's a little picture of King James supervising the torture of witches in Edinburgh, and that's from the 1591 pamphlet News from Scotland again.
Uh-huh.
This is
interesting.
This gets crazier. You won't believe it. It gets crazier.
Oh,
Right, despite this major fuck up, basically, when James VI of Scotland, so he just had this major fuck up, his first witch trial that he held, his mass witch trial that he held after he released his shitty little book. When he became James I of England in 1603, when Elizabeth died, he immediately republished Demonology. And the following year, he made an amendment to the Elizabethan Witchcraft Act of 1563. Because, in the Elizabethan version, the first offence of witchcraft would only be punishable by a year in prison. It was only like a capital offence on your second offence. He removed that and called for immediate execution by hanging, regardless.
Oh, wow.
With the public still fearful and dubious in Scotland following the Aitken fiasco, and with tensions arising elsewhere, King James' attentions turned away from hunting witches and towards Catholics. Catholic conspiracies threatened his claim to the English throne. In much the same way, the North Berwick witches had threatened him in Scotland, at least in his mind. After the gunpowder plot of 1605 and Guy Fawkes' alleged plan to blow up Parliament and kill the king, which, by the way, whole other story, it's not what you think either. Might do that next week because it's November the 5th.
Yeah, that is actually...
James's attention turned away from witches. Now he had a new threat: militant Catholics. However, the seed that he had planted continued to grow and fester, and witch hysteria was not over. Despite his attentions having shifted, his ideas now permeated Scottish society. The influence of demonology was far from over.
Imagine.
Now we go on to the Great Scottish Witch Hunt of 1628 to 1631. So when the fiasco that was the previous one was long forgotten, and the fear and panic and hysteria took over from the apprehension of mass witch hunts, the third Great Scottish Witch Hunt was inevitable. In the intervening years, there had been arrests and convictions sporadically all over Scotland, as well as executions, but nothing on the scale of what took place in 1591 and 1597, not at least until 1628. Witch hysteria hit Scotland once more, and over a period of 3 years, between 28 and 31, that's 1628 and 31, multiple witch hunts took place all over Scotland, resulting in hundreds of arrests. This is the least documented of all the witch hunts, which might have been done on purpose because of what happened the time before. There's not a lot of documentation. The trials were held at the local level and were not overseen by any larger governing body. so little is known about the details of specific cases. What we do know is that a great number of people were accused of witchcraft, tortured into confession, and executed during this period. In one of the very rare documented cases from 1629, we learn of the fate of an elderly Scottish woman called Isabel Young. During her trial, a plethora, this was like all to do with, this is a short version, but this is all to do with like neighbour dispute had been going on for decades. So just just have that in your mind. These people have been having a dispute over land for decades. So during her trial, a plethora of neighbours and relatives were called to testify against her. According to these witnesses, Young, the wife of a tenant farmer based in a small village east of Edinburgh, which I believe might be Haddington, but I'm not entirely sure. It's either Haddington or Preston Pans. Was prone to patterns of verbal and sometimes physical aggression, as well as odd magical characteristics. That's what the witnesses said. She's got odd magical characteristics. I don't know what the fuck that means, but whatever.
She had a hat and a little wand.
Her husband, George Smith, added fuel to the fire, claiming that his wife had attempted to kill him with magic after quarrelling about an unsavoury house guest. This house guest was a man called Christian Grinton, who George Smith testified was also a witch. And apparently he'd seen him shapeshift into a cat.
Cat's going to get it again,
I was
isn't
going to say, is this your cat?
In total, court records show 45 witnesses raised complaints against Isabel Young. 45.
45.
Telling a story that unfolded over 4 decades, in which time they'd had these massive land disputes between the two families. So 2 of her servants testified that her oxen could speak.
Oh no.
And that they had heard the animals proclaim, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." Because that's what oxen, if oxen could speak, that's what they would say. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." And I'm like, oh my fucking God, really? So several people testified they had witnessed her controlling the weather. Some had seen her shapeshift, while others had seen her creeping around in the dark, conducting strange rituals, in their words, whatever the fuck that means. The verdict was obviously unanimous. Guilty. Young was then strangled to death, which was apparently a mercy, before being burnt at the stake for her supposed crimes.
See, you didn't have to have evidence of anything.
You're not like the neighbour, you're like, witch. Witch. I saw her turn into a fucking donkey. Witch.
So I'm saying, you didn't have to have proof of anything. It was all hearsay.
Right, so after that one, the next one, the 4th Great Scottish Witch Hunt. This one saw the most executions for witchcraft to take place within a single year. And that is the Great Scottish Witch Hunt of 1649 to 50. A new Witchcraft Act was passed in 1649, which once again sent the country into a witch panic. The majority of the witch hunts took place around the areas of Fife and Lothian and into the lowlands, with some spillover into northern England. In total, there were 612 accusations, at least, that were recorded. 399 of those were from 1649 alone. Within these 612 accusations, 556 people were named and a further 243 were unnamed accomplices. There were 200 executions in the area of Lothian alone that year, and that is one county within Scotland. One little county. It's not little, but you know what I mean. There were a total of 69 confessions of demonic pacts within the court records for that year alone. A bizarre and deadly addition to this witch hunt was the introduction of a process which would negate the need for a confession.
Oh no, here we go.
Whilst in previous trials, confessions were sought via torture on the most part, during 1649, a new practice became common. This was called pricking.
What?
Pricking.
I hope I don't mean what I think of it. No.
Right, so this involved a person, an actual person, whose actual job was to be a witch pricker.
I know what this is going to be. It's going to be awful, isn't it?
So basically, they took a large needle and they stripped the accused witch naked, and on her body they located which they decided was her witch's mark.
Oh no.
They then inserted the needle into the witch's mark. Now, if the witch felt no pain, she was a witch.
Oh.
However, if they did bleed and attempt to feel pain, that didn't prove her innocent. No, that just meant that they were going to continually stab the needle all over her fucking body until she confessed.
Well, that makes no sense at all. Then why even?
It's the same as the water thing. If you drown, you're innocent.
Yeah.
You're fucking dead, but sorry, you didn't do nothing.
No way to escape that.
So they're going to stab her continuously with this big fuck off needle until she confesses. So that's why there were so many executions. These people were fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You think?
I've never heard some gruesome stuff before on TV about English, and here we are. Like, I hadn't heard about this particular.
This is from an engraving from 1678. This, like, not when this witch trial was taking place, but it gives you an idea of like what was going on at the time. And here we can see the public hanging of witches in Scotland, and the witch finder or witch pricker is in the background being paid.
Oh no!
So he's getting paid for finding them and pricking them and like exposing them.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
So people made that their job, witch pricker.
Sad. What a
Right.
vicious thing.
So we're now on to the Great Scottish Witch Hunt, 1661 to 1662. So during this period, Scotland experienced one of the largest witch hunts in its history. Now, you've got the fucking previous ones, they're getting worse. Within a space of 16 months, no fewer than 660 persons were publicly accused of various acts of sorcery and diabolism. The hunt began to the east of Edinburgh in the villages and small boroughs of Midlothian and East Lothian, where 206 individuals were named as witches between April and December 1661. The hunt did not remain restricted to that area, however, as the Privy Council busily issued commissions to local authorities all over the country to try suspected witches. We do not know exactly how many people were executed during this hunt, but the report of a man called John Ray, who was an English naturalist, claimed that 120 witches were burned during his brief visit to Scotland. And that suggests that the total number over those 2 years was fucking substantial. It is true that some of the witches tried in the Judiciary Court, which is a central criminal court, also known as the Justice Court, were acquitted. So some of them did get acquitted. And a number of those were simply named as accomplices and were never actually came to trial. Probably because they didn't have fucking time, to be honest, the amount of fucking that they were doing it. This should in no way, however, detract from the size and importance of this witch hunt in Scottish history. At no other time in Scottish history, with the possible exception of 1597, which was the first one after he wrote the book, were so many people accused of witchcraft within such a brief period of time. Indeed, the hunt involved 4 times, although that one was 2 times, 4 times the number of people accused of witchcraft in Salem, which we all know about. So I'm comparing to Salem, just because that's the one everybody's taught about.
I agree with that. He's a prick.
So the most well-known of the many witches accused during this last great witch hunt was a woman named Isabel Gowdy from Audern near Nairn in the Scottish Highlands. After her arrest in 1661 and her torture, which involved sleep deprivation, which often caused hallucinations, and pricking to locate the witch's mark, and multiple beatings, she inevitably confessed. But Isabel would go on to give a total of 4 very highly detailed, vivid confessions, a lot of which came from folklore and beliefs surrounding witches that were commonplace at the time. However, some of it came from Isabel's imagination and were unheard of even at the time. Her first confession was witnessed by 2 local ministers and at least 12 local lairds. She claimed to have attempted to destroy her neighbour's crop by taking a child's body from its grave to use as part of her incantation so that only thistles and briars would grow. Basically weeds. He's not going to be able to grow any crops. Isabel also confessed to performing what she described as image magic, whereby she would use clay figures to cast spells over her neighbours, including the Minister of Audern, Harry Forbes, who was in attendance for this confession. That's handy again, isn't it?
Yeah.
She claimed she could shapeshift and turn herself into things like a jackdaw, a cat, and a hare.
Uh-huh.
Additionally, she claimed that she had been part of a coven of witches.
Oh no, here we go.
Isabel Gowdy is actually credited with being the person to invent the term coven to describe a group of witches, a term that is still used to this day and now been used before. She invented it. In her confession, Isabel claimed her coven would meet at midnight, because obviously midnight,
Witching hour.
yeah, in the old kirk of Audern, which stood on the site of a pre-Christian stone circle. Apparently, according to Isabel, the devil himself would preach to them from the pulpit, commanding them to do all the evil they could. You go and do all the evil you can. That's what he said to them from the pulpit. The devil's sermon was followed by a wild dance, during which the witches chanted. She and her coven would then turn corn stalks into horses.
So this is where we
You're
broke
not
out the
She
broomstick, I
turned
guess.
Corn stalks into horses.
into horses and used them to fly
Oh,
through the
really?
sky.
Oh,
So that's kind of broomstick. We're seeing like where things come from now.
I think Isabel was a
Yeah.
bit tapped, but just so. According to Isabel's confession, she would travel to Elfane, which is fairyland, everybody. Fairyland!
Fairyland.
I can agree to that.
Where she saw little elf boys whittling flint arrows sharpened by the devil to shoot at people that they wished to destroy. As she wrote in her confession, now this is written in Old Scottish, so I'm going to try my best. As for elf arrowheads, the devil shapes them up with his own hands to give to an elf boy, who whips them with a sharp thing and a baking needle.
okay.
So that happened. That's true. It's true. Sounds fucking legit. She claimed she then feasted under the local fairy hill, the Downey Hill, the site of an Iron Age fort, with the fairy king and the fairy queen, because not just any fairy, fucking royalty. The king being a braw man, well-favoured and broad-faced, and the queen being brawly clothed in white linens. Now, for those, braw means nice, beautiful. Apparently in Scotland, that's what braw means. So they were both braw. They were both braw. I said both. They were both braw. She also expressed her fear of water bulls, which she apparently encountered there, which is a bit random. But thanks for sharing, Isabel. Throughout her dramatic testimony, Isabel recounted using 27 charms, including using sickness transferal, whereby an individual is cured by diverting their illness onto someone or something else. Suggestions have been made that she may have been a magic practitioner, as she claimed to have performed rituals to cure fevers and broken bones, signifying that she may have been some sort of wise woman. These confessions were extracted over a period of 6 grueling weeks of sleep deprivation and torture, after which Isabel was inevitably found guilty and was then transported by cart to Gallow Hill on the outskirts of Nairn, where she was put to death for her supposed crimes. During her confessions, she had implicated another 12 people as witches and members of her coven.
Wow.
Records are sketchy as to the fates of all of these women, but one of them was a woman by the name of Janet Brayhead, who was strangled and burnt as a witch during this period. Janet Brayhead herself implicated upwards of 30 people during her confessions, and God only knows how many each one of those 30 people then implicated and condemned to the same torture and inevitable fate.
Wow.
Scotland.
So sad.
Scotland was the epicentre of witch hunts in the British Isles. Relative to its population, Scotland executed 15 times more people for witchcraft than England did before the law was reversed in 1735 and changed to fines and imprisonment for those pretending to be witches. Hundreds of people, mostly women, were arrested, horrifically tortured and murdered under the facade of the law, at the whim of a paranoid king. Even long after he had died, the reverberations of his paranoia and prejudices still loomed over not only Scotland, but the entire world. It was these laws and beliefs that sailed across the ocean into the New World and into New England, where the Puritans hunted witches using methods not too dissimilar to the events that unfolded in Scotland. Everyone knows about the Salem witch trials, but very little is ever said about the Scottish witch trials, which inspired them, or the actions of the church and the crown that set all of these events into motion in the first place. A woman called Janet Home from Dornoch was the last person to be legally executed for witchcraft in the British Isles in 1727. She was arrested with her daughter. Horn was suffering from dementia at the time, and her disabled daughter, who was arrested alongside her, had deformities of her hands and feet. Because of this, neighbours accused Janet of using witchcraft to turn her daughter into a pony in order to ride to the devil. Both were found guilty and sentenced to death by the sheriff, Captain David Ross. Her daughter somehow managed to escape, but not Janet. She was stripped naked, smeared with tar, paraded through the town, and then burnt alive at the stake.
Wow.
Almost 300 years later, on International Women's Day, on March the 8th, 2022, Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, stood in Holyrood, the Scottish Parliament, and gave a formal apology to all the women who were tried, convicted, and executed as witches in Scotland. Too fucking little, too fucking late. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end.
But I would say
You're on mute, Daniel.
I would say
That's
at least you
horrible.
made an attempt, unlike others. That's what I suppose. But
Well, that was all because of the Me Too thing.
Yeah,
It wasn't because they were sorry. They didn't do it because they were sorry. It was because
Because
all
they
the
had
Me Too
to.
bullshit was going on.
How shocking how many people these women took down with them.
yeah,
Well, and the men too, but
I
That's
know
so
it happened actually. In England itself, because I've seen sort of programs for 80 years at school. We were taught a few of them, and the Duncan. I thought it happened in the Salem witch trials, but I'm thinking about old English stories.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, that was the Scottish witch trials.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I wouldn't enjoyed my own work. I hope you learned something, but something that needs to be told. Because if you don't recognise your history, you're doomed to fucking repeat it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're going to burn people at the stake, but stop it.
And people can get mixed up. I suppose they can see it as sort of like a criticism of the church and things like that. But it's not really, is it? Because what we see is, like I say, they got they did it to the English when the king actually took command of the country. The previous king had a Bible written and passages written, and they used to torture that person who they had to write. It wasn't his fault. He was just being told, because obviously the king was going to kill him and things like that. So
this is why I don't.
happens all well. That's the trouble.
This might be controversial, but this is why I don't trust the King James Bible.
No,
because I know what he put in that demonology book, and I know that a lot of the other versions of the Bible that were written afterwards were based upon the King James Bible, and even the ones that went back and took and translated the other texts themselves only translated the same books that he did. They didn't add anything else. Yeah. I don't trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust any of them. Fuck them. Fuck the crown. Fuck you. And you can arrest me for treason all you like. Fuck you.
Please don't hold back, Lisa. Tell us really how you feel about it.
Well, it's disgusting. I'm sorry, it's disgusting.
Yeah,
no, it is.
I mean, it happened everywhere, and wow,
it is.
And these people are still getting away with shit. I mean, look at Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they can do whatever the fuck they like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because they stole all their fucking land. It was never theirs to begin with. They stole it all, and they decided that they were going to become the king at some point, and then they inbred themselves for centuries, and apparently we've got to fucking honour them and oh, well done. No, fuck off. Fuck you, and fuck you some more. Anyway, I'm finished.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm sorry that it was we had a little respite of how many weeks there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 2, 3.
I did waffle on for
we did kind of made it up for a bit, but when we had to, that was 3 stories. That was it'd be quite difficult.
I know it's been 2.5 hours, but we had 3 stories, and I can't help it. I can't help it. I can't do short.
No.
No, she can't. It's all good.
Okie
so
dokie, everyone. Thank you for
we
watching.
will see you. When will we see them, Danielle?
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Yes, we
Make
will.
sure you pop on over to thecuriouscasefiles.com and check out the store. And remember, put in code HO to get 10% off your Christmas orders. That's code HO. That's HO. Ho, everybody. Merry Christmas, because Halloween's over now, so it's Christmas. Go!
Oh,
That's what the shops do. The stores do.
Yeah,
that,
the
don't
shops do that. Just
Yeah.
like,
They're putting
just
Easter up on the
push
shelf
all the
now, don't
Halloween shit off the shelf. It's Christmas now.
Yeah.
Go!
no.
Yeah.
I'm not
We
ready.
might let us know what you think. Do you want us to go and do like a true crime thing next week, or shall we do Guy Fawkes and the actual true story of the gunpowder plot? Because it's not what you got fucking taught in school. Do you want Guy Fawkes? Let us know. Go to Facebook. Let us
We
know.
weren't taught in school about him over here.
Oh, well,
No.
we were.
Yeah, they ain't really got a clue. have
Well,
they?
it'll still
Well,
be
they have
fucking,
it-
it'll
some
still be
people know.
interesting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
bad Santas.
here's my outro.
Yeah.
Anybody got anything to say before I press the button?
Thanks for joining us,
Yeah.
everyone. Please like and share.
And fuck the monarchy. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.